Welcome to the Here We Talk About It Talk platform, where everything is on the table and no conversation is taboo. The purpose of this platform is to engage with complex and often overlooked topics through thoughtful and honest conversation. This may be done through panel discussions, individual reflections, or even debates. It depends on what best supports the conversation. Through these talks, I hope to encourage critical thinking in community members, providers, organizations, funders, and anyone in a public service capacity. These discussions will focus on real-world issues and public health history and current events, and will be engaged with a harm reduction approach, centering dignity, nuance, and the understanding that everyone is worthy of being heard and seen. The goal is to create dialogue that is relevant and meaningful for anyone willing to listen, learn, and engage with perspectives that are often left out of mainstream conversations. All statements and opinions expressed during these talks are solely those of the individual guests and are made in their personal capacities. They do not constitute and should not be interpreted as the official views, positions, or endorsements of any employer, agency, organization, or institution with which the guests are affiliated. Furthermore, the Here We Talk About It platform is not connected with the facilitator or the current or future guest employment or leadership spaces. Everyone comes into this circle as themselves. I ask everyone to come as their best selves. That means please do not harass anyone. Find space to learn from people with diametrically opposing perspectives than you hold. Hold no judgment, and please feel free to engage with each other and network in the chat. Please be mindful that these sessions will be recorded, and while I will not be sharing any chat history with anyone, it is always a possibility that someone can share your views outside of this space, so it is best to be mindful of what you put into the atmosphere. Lastly, these sessions will be free, but in future sessions, donation requests will appear. In the meantime, please feel free to donate and support to any of the participating guests as they are taking time out of their personal lives to educate and spread awareness to the community. Be safe and enjoy the conversation. I'm not excited for this. Thank you, Shreeta. Thank you, Zay. Thank you, Bree, for taking the time, 6 p.m. on this day to speak to us today. Start off, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the work. I love me my icebreakers, right? So my icebreaker for y'all today is like was there ever a person, whether it was fictional, real person, in your life that inspired what you consider leadership, um, and or how you maneuver as a leader? And any one of y'all, please feel free to answer that.
All right, I'm gonna jump in. My name is Shreeta Walden, and I'm the executive director for Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition. I'm also a poet, a spoken word artist. I'm a creative. Um, so tell me that first question again. Say it one more
Oh,
time.
just tell about yourself, how you got into the work that you're currently in, and if there was a person, real or fake, that inspired you as a leader and helped you maneuver as a leader.
So as a leader, I'm a servant leader, right? So, I look at myself as I'm I'm within my community. I've been in the field of social services. Um, I'm a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor, but I've been doing this work for about a decade, 2 decades now. Um, and what I like to lead with in most spaces is that I'm a creative, so I'm a storyteller. And what a lot of people don't know about me is that my background is in theater. I've done professional theater. I'm from Chicago. I'm a little Black girl from the South Side of Chicago, born and raised. And the people that have shaped my life, my ancestors that have passed on, and my community that has wrapped their arms around me. So not just my family, my parents, but my mentors. One of my mentors, Renako Jahi, one of my theater, he's a director. He's mentored some local and nationally known celebrities. But he's special to me because growing up on the stage, ever since I was a little kid, my voice is impactful. He's taught me how to move in spaces and show up authentically. So my leadership doesn't just come from the spaces that people think it will come from, like our professional spaces, right? It comes from the people who have shaped my life from childhood. So my uncles, the people in the community, my brother, the people that raised me on the streets, the candy store lady in the alley store in Chicago on the South Side, all these people shaped my life. So storytelling, how we show up, and storytelling starts from within. Who am I? The people around me reflect who I am. So I'll stop there and pass the mic. And thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Jose.
Bingo. Yeah, my name is Nze Okoronta. I use they, them pronouns. And currently I'm the executive director of Yarrow Collective in Fort Collins, Colorado. Um, the work I'm currently in, I think I could describe how I got into that in a lot of different ways, but um, what I really think about is my adolescence. I was a kid that spent most of my time like at the skate park, hanging out with other kids that also use drugs. I was a party goer. I was the raver. I was the one passing out trip stoppers. And really, I think when I think about like leadership, I would say it sounds like I guess cliche, but I honestly my dad, um, my um, my stepdad is someone who came from a really different background and came into my life at a time that I was in a lot of pain and I thought I had no one. He's indigenous Anishinaabe, so I grew up with, the seven teachings and understanding that like respect, truth, humility, wisdom, love, compassion, and honesty. Those were the teachings that were taught to me. And he told me about leadership probably when I was 15, when I was like adopted spiritually on the reservation at a ceremony. He gave me the clan bear. And bear is for, he told me the bear is teaching of courage. So it means moving forward despite there being fear present. And he always told me that in leadership, balancing like compassion with ferocity would be kind of one of my lessons. So I think a lot about, yeah, what my stepdad taught me as as far as like bears being medicine keepers and knowing when to be caring and when to nurture, and also knowing when to take out the claws and tear somebody's head off if you need to. So, yeah, that's how I think about my dad.
All right, so since everyone's jumping in, let me go. I'm Bree. I'm from New Jersey. I am a harmonization consultant. And how did I get into this work? By mistake. I took the job in prevention and I thought it was like loss prevention. I was 18 and it ended up being what I ended up doing for the rest of my life. And then is there a person or fictional? Mm, okay, so this is gonna be a little weird, right? Buffy. Y'all watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In my mind, I am the next Slayer. Okay. Um, I when I was reading these questions earlier, it came to my mind of Buffy died at the end. Buffy died and then she came back alive. She died in the first season. But anyway, she died. She risked her life and she put everything on the line for folks that didn't really like care too much about her, because people didn't believe her or whatever. Then she comes back to save the world. But the way she led, right, because she was like a teenager and then becomes a woman, but a lot of similarities. She ends up adopting her sister. I have my brother. Um, she puts herself first on the front line along with her team of they're not technically slaves, but like along with her team, right? And so I think that I've done the same, and it has not been the best experience for me. It didn't work out for me. But yeah, like that would be what I think of like leadership. I think of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That's all I
Killing,
have.
killing all the vampires, doing the good work.
Right. Right. Well, she also killed herself, sacrificed herself. So maybe not the best trajectory, but I need to not do that.
Thanks for sharing. My next question, very simple, but I really want to just lay out a ground of, y'all personal experiences and, you know, I'm wondering what your experience has been, as leaders or with leadership. I don't really, I know the work that everyone does, but I don't really know what capacity of leadership everyone played. So I'm just wondering, what has it been, what has it been like, pros and cons, you know, whatever your experience has been.
So thank you for asking that question. And I like how you framed that, Jose, because I've experienced both and I've experienced leadership that's helped me, right? And then I've experienced leadership that's harmed me. And I'm one of those people that don't take experience for nothing. So like experiences, I don't have losses. Everything that I experience is a lesson. I've learned something from it. I've learned how I want to show up as a leader and how I do not want to show up, right? I've learned, and I made sure to take notes, y'all, because I told you I'm a creative, I'm a writer, so I could get blown. But yeah, I've learned how to become the leader I am today through harm, through survival, and through love. Without diving quickly into, all those personal experiences, I've also felt supported and I've been in spaces where I've been silenced and I didn't even know I was. Not that someone, and I think that the difference is somebody may hear that and they may think someone said, no, be quiet, Shreeta. And there's a silencing, and I don't know what you all think about this, Zay and Bree. But there's a silence in effect that is not even direct at times. You know, um, I can share a time where I brought up an idea and I didn't hear any feedback in the room. But after the meeting, someone will come up to me and they'll be like, that was a good idea. Maybe I'll share. And I'm like, dang, that's strange because all the people to make decisions they was in the room. And you didn't act like this was a great idea in the moment. And I noticed that, right? And I'm like, gosh, do I not speak? Yeah, that silent support, right? Which is weird. It's kind of contradicting because how do you support me, but then in front of people you don't? Um, I've been in positions of leadership where no one actually identified me as a leader or designated me as a leader, but people came to me as a leader. And then I received harm on the other end from other people because people were coming to me. I was in a subordinate position, but because people were asking me for my feedback, they were asking me how to approach a situation. And then they show up in a space similar to this and say, well, Shreeta said, and I was like, and then I'm being called in like, we need you to stay in your lane. And I'm like, I am. I am. If someone come ask me for a suggestion or feedback. So I had to learn that it's okay for me to speak up, that everybody's not going to like it. And even the people that look like me may not like it. Um, I had to understand the patterns across all these different organizations. I had to understand that even in nonprofit, passionate work, there's still going to be the issues that government systems have as well. So I think, the best way, again, circling back to how I opened this up, my leadership journey and experiences are layered. Those experiences that were negative, they were still impactful because they taught me lessons on how to work with my team. They taught me how to show up. They taught me what not to say and what not to do. So, what do you think about that, Bree or Zay? What's your thoughts?
So I want to say that for me, it's been very similar. I think there's different layers. There's been times where I've had good experience and times where I have less than favorable experiences, but I try to um, take all of it to shape. You just had to do that to shape my journey and the leader that I am now and who I hope to become. Um, excuse my dog going crazy in the back. Um, that's my leader. I think that even in the bad experiences, I can say that um, I have learned what I don't want to be. So it still builds character, right? And I know what not to do and how not to act. Um, so yeah. And when people, what's funny? I've seen a lot of people with like that silent support that you guys, I call it like you're a hater. You're secretly a hater. You don't really support, um, because support should be loud, right? Especially when we talk about harm reduction. The same way if we can't advocate for each other and we can't support each other in public, then how can we do that for people that we don't even know?
Right.
Like it seems performative, I would say.
I agree.
I do agree. Zay is probably lo lost reception or something, but I definitely agree with what both of y'all are saying. And I have these conversations with people, and I've had people tell me, you've been too kind about it, but I want to talk like the silent support, kind of piece of it really rings out to me because I like to assume good intentions in people. So I
I've
want to
stopped that.
assume. I know, right? I need to stop that. But it's what actually keeps me going. Just like I know that there's good people. I know that, there's people that can make change, but I personally don't think that people acknowledge their power. And I say this in reference to when I talk about politicians a lot, where I'm like, yo, at what time did it become like
we cater to them. I could have sworn it was us, because the power has always been in the people's hand. And now, like the way I've seen it for a lot, not for the most part, but I've seen it a lot is like how you said the person will come after the meeting. Yo, that sounds good. Like how people might be scared that, oh, this person might be a little too aggressive. And then if I side with them, I might be taught because birds of a feather. A lot of people think that that's a really they put that like as a life characteristic or whatever. Like, oh, if you with this person, then that means like you must be the same or you must be wild or whatever. So people don't really want to be labeled, under that. Nobody wants to be labeled as what we call the angry person or the what they say hard to work with, the disgruntled coworker, whatever you want to call it and all of that, but that really resonated with me because I don't think people know how much power they have, how much in one conversation, just you saying, you know what, I agree with this person, it might change something, but once again, you make 0% of the shots you never take. So I'm just saying.
I think this is the thing. I got two things to say about what you said. It's okay for me to be angry. I have embraced that because I think it's kind of gaslighting when people say, you know, you're presenting as the angry Black woman or whatever. And I embrace it. You know why? Because I have every damn reason to be angry. Like, why not?
Hello.
Like that to
Stop
me is
pissing me
weird.
off.
It's weird energy to say, I'm you showing up. Yes, I am. And you know what made me feel real good about it? I'm gonna tell you when. I was working with an agency and I was sitting in it was a treatment team meeting, and I was in my role as a clinician, as a leader in this department. And I saw this child protective service worker get angry. Oh my gosh, she was angry. And when she stormed out, I saw her supervisor. Now, I will pause here and give the caveat. She did not look like me. So I'll let you all go with that. Her supervisor looked at us and said, well, she's carrying, she's with child right now. So she justified it. And I said, oh, this is a great opportunity. So I looked at my director, who we became friends. I said, so it's okay for us to show up and be angry because there is justification. Anger is a symptom of something being misaligned. And they did it right there. So I don't care anymore how people's perception shows up because I I have a right when I show up. See, there is a point to this because I want to be clear. I'm not talking about reckless anger either. I'm talking about transmuted. I'm talking about transformed. I'm talking about anger that is very defined. So if I come in and I'm direct and I'm clear and my voice has this stance in it where I'm not taking any business. It doesn't matter what's going on, then yes, that's intentional. Now, the other thing I wanted to speak on was the assuming positive intent. Now, this is the thing. I'm gonna push back on y'all because that's what this conversation about too.
That's
I
right.
do assume positive intent, right? Because in the beginning, as a leader for me, when I am entering a space, I'm going to enter this space with the initial thought that everyone's coming in here for the same reason. I'm not saying that I'm gullible. I'm saying that we all have shown up because there is something that we want to do for a community that we believe in. And that's it. Now it's up to that person to continue with that narrative. But if they start to behave in the way that's against that, then now I can make an informed decision. But I come into a space with the positive assumption, and check this out. I got that from an agency that actually was doing the opposite. I remember them doing a training about assuming positive intent. And I took a hold of it and I was like, I really like this approach, and realized that they were just teaching us something. They were performing, like Bree said, because they did not follow through with it, but I took it and ran with it. So those were the two things I wanted to piggyback off. Zay, we glad to be back, sis.
Yeah. I know, I know. Don't worry. We know it, Colorado internet is not New York internet. No shade to anyone from Colorado, but New York is the shit.
I please. Anyway, what I was
Wow.
going to push back at is the positive intent. I have learned no longer to do that because it can leave you in a very, I don't assume anything bad either. I just don't assume anything. I let folks, I let things play out from recent, very recent. So please, I don't even know how this is going to work out either. But because I think that when that's how I've operated forever. And I'm realizing that people use that as a weakness sometimes, right? And so when we're talking about leadership, I think that I think that a lot of people, or some, I can't say a lot, some people, and maybe not necessarily just in this field, but in general, have that mentality of like getting over someone or using people as stepping stones, right?
Mm.
And so if I continue to let my guard down in a way where I assume everyone is like good and everyone is on the same page and like we're all trying to save the world and be slayers, and I end up getting in the wildest situations that yeah, I end up being the sacrificial lamb. So I think that as a leader, I will also be teaching that to whoever that I'm leading, whatever team I'm on, whatever, projects I'm on, is to not assume anything either way. Because the saying stands true. When you assume, you make an ass out of yourself. It doesn't matter whether you're assuming good intentions or ill intentions. If you are assuming, you're gonna be that. So yeah. Oh, and
Um,
as leaders, wait, hold on, no, because I got
mhm.
sidetracked. My dog is like bothering me, right? I think that when you said, being difficult to work with, I think that's because people lack boundaries, right? And people don't want leaders who really set boundaries. I think people say that, but I don't think that that's in reality what people want. I think sometimes as leaders, we're also expected to take the brunt of everything, which leads to the burnout or leads to people saying they're difficult to work with. So, yeah, that's what I have.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. People do not like boundaries. And before we get Zay, I just want to say that, and for anyone that knows, my history in this field, there was a time when I was just going at everyone because I just saw a lot that just really didn't sit well with me. So everyone, basically was a target for me. And it took a couple years for me to actually realize that that was pretty stressful on me. There's something a similar way out of thinking, but the best person I heard say it was DMX when he was like, I trust everybody, I trust them to be themselves, and that don't make me look at them any more, any less, right? And that's what I had to learn to embody. A lot of those people that was in those spaces and good friendships with those people who I looked at as problematic, some of those people actually ended up, being the people that come to my, defense, come to help me, show up for me. So, I'm not coming at it from a naive point of view. I was very cautious, but it's just for me, it's just really stressful to just like hold that as a shield. So, but yeah, Zay, anything to say about what you experienced as a leader and or with leadership?
Yeah, so I have over the course of like a couple different jobs ended up in like leadership positions, not because I wanted to, but because I was asked to do them. I think I went into it really naively, not understanding kind of the responsibility like to myself that I would have. Like for me, I think like my experience, so I am somebody who chooses, because of the experiences I've had in the world, I do choose to see people through a lens of positive intent, and presume positive regard. I love the DMX quote of like I see other people as trustworthy because I trust myself. And I think we all decide what kind of work we want to do, emotionally, like within leadership, and just like parts, the component of who I am, I think shines through as an asset for me, as like something I was always told was a hindrance in, growing up and being in school and just being in the world, was like you are always seeing the best in people, or you always give everyone the benefit of the doubt, but you don't give that to yourself. And so I think being in leadership actually taught me that those things I possess naturally are skills, those personality traits I have of seeing things optimistically. And I think my leadership experience has been determined a lot based on how I see myself. So at times that I've been more afraid and anxious and insecure, I have responded reactively, and even in like nasty, harmful, judgmental ways toward people, more in leadership in terms of like things like in school, or like when I was in like my early 20s. And then like as I grew and learned to embrace myself and trust who I am, it gave me permission to trust other people to be who they are as well. This is just me personally, but like for me, the way I experience leadership is like entirely like a reflection of what's going on with me. So if I think that, other people, um, are like out to get me, or like other people like are trying to like screw me over, like there might be something going on that makes me feel like I don't feel secure in something. So the things, I guess the way I experience leadership is how I experience myself, honestly. And in the work I do, I think, especially with people with lived experience, I had to come to my own reckoning of like what power meant, because being someone who identifies as like a leftist, like an anarchist who's come from like, a lot of community organizing that was very like non-hierarchical, before I stepped into leadership, or before I actually became good at it, I was very afraid of being in leadership because I was afraid of like, yeah, like everyone coming after me with their pitchforks, or like doing it wrong, or I was just afraid of being the authority. I was afraid of being perceived as an authoritarian. I was afraid to have boundaries and limits. I was afraid to be truly who I was. I felt like power might corrupt me. I remember kind of like how people feel about money. Like, how there's some people that think that if you make money, there's no way you can be a good person. And that, to me, that shit is weird. I'm sorry if that's you. But people say the same thing about people in power. Like, well, the more like power and influence you get, like the further you get away from your values. And so I realized the reason I didn't want to step into leadership when called is because I was afraid I would lose who I was. And so as a result of that, I was very like hyper vigilant, very critical of myself. I was always like questioning my own motives. It was like I was speculating on myself to the point that I was like taking myself apart, instead of understanding that like I could trust myself and learn how to move with power, understand what influence meant, and be transparent about that and have humility in it. So yeah, I think I've experienced a lot of fear of leadership in movements, a lot of fear of power in movements, and sometimes because of the personal things, the way people construct how they understand power and authority in their own head, people be taking out their power issues on me all day, all the time. And it's up to me to decide how much of that to internalize, how much of their battle is mine to fight with them and for them, versus also, and balancing also like protecting myself and knowing that I know who I am, and inviting them to discover who I am too, without all the associations that they are holding, and the baggage that comes from their past experiences.
Yeah, Zay, I was looking for the snaps one and I can't find it on my thing. I think Zoom is like hating on me, but I wrote down what you were talking about. And to me, it sounds like the work that you've done on yourself as a leader before becoming that, the version of who you are today. And I've told people before, because the example of with power comes people lose who they are. I don't believe that. What I tell people is with access, the real you comes out. So, what we see in
That part.
celebrity, listen, You got more
That part.
money, more access to finances. Like, you can't tell me that a person
Hmm.
who's making millions now just all of a sudden became reckless. No,
Right. They just
no.
didn't have
They got,
the opportunity to be reckless.
there you go. So it's up to the person. I love how you said how I show up as a leader is me. It's inside
Right.
of me already. Like, that's the realest thing I've heard. Like, why do people think people do that? I used to fear that too. I had to realize that I didn't want to be in the C-suite. I didn't want to be an executive director because I was watching the poor leadership above me, to realize that that's not that's not who I am in my moral compass. Those individuals got more access, more money, so they were able to feed more of that ugliness that was already inside of them. Girl, that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it took somebody literally telling me, like, you could never become that person because that's not who you are.
That's not who
Mm,
you are. Yep. Someone told me that too.
that's great. That's what I just typed down on my phone.
That's great. Um, yeah, I like all of that. It's like it's like what Shreeta said. I was it Shreeta? Oh, don't kill me.
Say, I
It
was
was
gonna say,
you
well,
you or
say
Bree. It
something.
was you or Bree that said it, but you was like, I know what a leader's not, you know,
Oh yeah.
and that's what that made me think,
Yeah.
like because it looks different in all of us, right? You put all of us in one space, we have one project, it's identical for us to complete. We're gonna come up with different products. It's gonna look different. We're gonna approach it different. You know what I mean? And so that means that if we have leaders, us individually, that means we need a different kind of leader, So we can't all be the same kind, compassionate. We are all who we are and bringing ourselves to the table. And I personally think that's the best leadership, especially if you have like
Mhm.
a little shade of accountability to go with that. Like, because, every approach is not the right approach. There's even times like even now where
Hmm.
I say some shit just like direct and somebody be like, yo, I'm not gonna lie, the way you said that, it ain't sit right with me. And even if I'm like in my head, like, what I do is I'll always go back to the drawing table and I bet I won't make that mistake again, whatever.
Hmm.
That's the kind of leader that I want. If I'm following somebody where I be like, nah, you out of line. And they be like, all right, tell me how, and actually take actionable steps,
Hmm.
not to repeat that. I think that after a certain level of leadership, like how I've experienced it is there's a ceiling of leadership that if someone manages to pass that you just start seeing arrogance and shit like that coming from them, like. So I think that as long as there's a shade of accountability from the beginning of your leadership to the end, I think that's the best way to go. Be you with accountable characteristics.
But that sometimes gets people in trouble because that's not the norm. Having that integrity, being the type of leader that we're speaking about is sometimes what isn't received well.
But that's why I think platforms like what Jose is building, excuse me for my Boston baked beans, y'all. I really like Boston
You,
baked
I'm over
beans.
here playing fetch with this dang dog because all of a sudden he wants to do that.
But I think that's why this kind of platform is important. And I know, Jose, we probably jumped ahead in this brief out because she said it, talking about what leadership, but it naturally went into what it should look like. And
Mhm.
that's, I feel like that's what's
I'll put
naturally
that in the chat right now. We could just segue right into it. Go ahead,
segue
Shrita.
right into it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that's the thing. That's the point of creating space. I don't think, at least I don't feel like participating in this panel was so we could walk away and everyone that shows up in this space walk away doing the same old shit. You know what I'm saying? Like we can't keep allowing people to walk around and move like this, right? So what should it look like? What should it feel like for me? What I bring into the leadership space as a leader is questioning first. Do people feel seen? Do people feel safe? Do people feel heard? Those are primary. Because as a leader, I do take the back seat. It's not about me right there in that moment. If I am choosing, I'm talking about leadership and title right now. I am. So looking at it from my lens, so my experience right now as an ED and the way that I show up, do my people feel seen, safe, and heard first? Because it's about them. It's about my relationship to my people. Even when they joke around and they be like, oh, boss lady, I'd be like, don't do that. I ain't nobody's boss. Now, if we in a bed together, that's different because I want you to call me boss. Like, we can do that. And I'm sorry. I just want to be real, right? We got to be real. But in this space, I'm not your boss. In fact, when we're in that space and my team see it, and if they actually hopped on here, because this is their time off, they don't even have to do that if they ain't want to, right? Let's keep it all the way 100. Because I am the ED, I say it's your choice. But when we're in space together, what I'm calling my outreach, my admin, anybody, even subordinates, these are my leaders. Anytime anyone, hey, so that's my leader. This my leader. These are leaders. Why? Because without them, I can't do nothing. I mean,
Right.
literally, I can't do nothing. So my thing is, no, you're right. We're not doing that right now. And I'm tired of giving people space. See, Zay, this is why I get hyped, right? Because you see, I'll be showing, I'll be like, I'm tired of people not doing it this way. We do need this standard. So gone are the days that we say is that's not what's accepted. That's BS. Because if Jose told me come on this panel, we gonna talk, but we gonna keep shit the same, I would have said I decline. I'm not participating in another talk, another chat, another panel discussion. I'm on less panel every year. You see me less and less, and people have said it. I didn't see you as much. You're right, because I'm tired of talking to y'all. I'm tired of talking. Y'all not doing nothing. So I'm about to shut up because I need my colleagues and my people on here
I will
to talk.
say that Shreeta, okay, and don't, if I get corny, don't mind me. Shreeta has embodied what what a leader should be. I've seen it in real time, um, very recently. Um, there, but that's the type of leaders that we need. I would hope that someday, I get to be half of the leader that Sharita is, but what she's speaking about, that accountability and that walking in truth and making hard decisions. Yeah, you will call me corny, I don't care. I've been called worse. Um, that that's what we need in the field. That's what needs to shift. People need to be held accountable. People need to be brought down from pedestals, because it's harmful, right? Because when we have reckless leaders, it not only hurts, if you're hurting the organization, you're therefore hurting the community that it serves. So yeah, that's my little too, because I don't even think y'all asked a question. So,
Nah,
or,
we did. We
oh,
put
you
it in the
did.
chat. See,
Oh,
there you
hold on one
go.
sec.
See, didn't you say assume and make an ass out of you?
I didn't assume anything. I didn't see it.
You,
Oh, okay. What does
but
leadership look like? And what does
what I
leadership?
will say though, and you're right, because I don't care. I'll toot anybody's horn, but there's a fire to Shrita. You know what I mean? And you too.
Integrity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's a fire,
Sharita
and
works with
and
integrity.
let me tell you, and it's a leadership quality that we need so bad nowadays, especially now with everything that's going on with our administration, right? There's a certain level of fearlessness that we need, especially it's showing now. Like where, look at what happened with the executive orders and how quick so many people and organizations bow down. Like, yeah, of course,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we'll scrub it, we'll keep it going. But there was people, and Sheeta's definitely one of them that was like, nah, fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like, I'm good. And we need that, man. We need people who's not gonna be scared. Yeah, of course. Like, if the organization goes down, then the community gets affected. But let me tell you something. Even nowadays, following rules and laws and executive orders will have you shut down. So right
Mm-hmm.
now, we gotta we need that kind of fire nowadays, man. Like
Yeah, we
and
need to.
but not, I'm sorry, one more thing. Not only do we need that fire, but we need it the right way though. Once again, it can't be like all over the place like a blaze. It has to be a coordinated like fire that, is not like it's not othering them also. It's actually being inclusive of it all. And it will allow us to actually come and, what Nas called destroy and rebuild, you know?
Mhm. I will say again, I'm going to throw this back at Shrita. That is something that I've learned recently from Shrita, to be more calculated, to think things through, to be that kind of, because as a leader, I will say where I fallen short is I'm a little firecracker. My family used to call me, still calls me Foforito, which is like a light match, right?
Oh yeah, fuck
Um,
with her.
and so that is something that, I mean, I've learned through Shrita and through other folks. But I think that one, I was reading the question. Um, y'all, if there's any leaders in here, any older folks, I am so sorry. I might love y'all because I don't know who's in here, but some of our current leaders are just too old and just too stuck in ways and in toxic patterns, and they haven't healed, and they will not respect us, and they will not take uh any suggest, like, even though it's like, bro, I just came from this, I know what's, I'm outside, I know, no, because I am so and so and I know better. And I think that what we're missing right now is passing the torch. Folks are not doing that. Folks just want to be the end all be all until they leave. And we need to be able to pass the torch, pass the knowledge. Again, learning so much from really connecting, because Street and I have been connected for years, but like it's been real intimate lately, and not in a, you know, but just gotta throw it out there. But there's a lot of knowledge that I don't have that she's given me. And I think that's what's missing from other folks, that other folks are not passing the torch, are not really, they're saying they are, but I don't think that they really are. But that's what I miss. I think that, like, move out the way in a way where you are still in it, but you are leading the next generation of leaders. Because if not, I think that it's not going to work out for any of us. Well, because we're going to have to make the same mistakes our leaders, our greats, our giants, that we already, in the Black and brown community, we already don't have a lot of that. And we're missing out because folks won't pass the torch. More mentorship, yes.
And I think we're missing out sometimes because like I think a lot of people wait for the torch to get passed also, instead of building their own torch or
Mm-hmm.
finding a different fire. Just like someone who works like outside of like traditional systems and came from like a more grassroots background, like there were a lot of people that tried to like mentor me, and I learned how to I learned who I was and what my integrity was through disagreements with people that were mentoring me, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the times relationship fractures. Um, I know when people say mentorship, like I agree, we need more mentorship, but at the same time, like what a lot of mentorship actually is programming like little clones that think the way you do, that make the decisions that you do, that follow the same values as you. So I also think people don't really understand, like for me, I think like mentorship and like true leadership has nothing to do with like embodying a certain like set of skills that's like agreed upon or like qualities, but it's like people discovering what their own personal authenticity and integrity means to them
Mm-hmm.
and creating their own unique style, and then us honoring what those unique styles are. Because everybody has different lessons to learn, and everybody has different fights that they're going through. And I think we don't let people learn their own lessons because we have this prescriptive way of like, it's interesting because the people that found their own way used to say there was no right way till they started doing it. And then they think their way is the right way. And I try to I get overwhelmed personally when people think that if they act like me, it's going to work out for them. I'm like, no, this is who I am, how I discovered myself. You taking leaves out of my book is actually not going to give you anything. It's going to just create more and more distrust in who you authentically are. What you should pay attention to instead is how you react to the things that I say and what is in alignment with you, and then choose your own way. And I think like real, like what leadership, quote unquote, whatever the heck we're talking about, like what it actually should feel like is a person who is open and flexible and adaptable and teachable and a listener and someone that can actually hold space for people to grow and develop into who they are. And I don't like to make this comparison. I think it can be a little bit paternalistic and even demeaning, but there's a lot of similarities between dog training, parenting, good parenting, and being a leader. So when I think about animals, I'll use that as an example. Training an animal in obedience is like 1, 2, 3, you do this when I say sit. Shaping an animal, shaping behavior is actually rewarding any positive motion toward the desired outcome. And it's teaching an animal to think for themselves so that they're making good decisions. So like my dog is reactive. I have a pit bull. I fucking love him. And when I think about the kind of dog, my dog, it's not like, oh, what kind of dog do I want my dog to be? I don't want like because people think animals are like furniture, or like a toy. It's supposed to perform for you. But I got an animal that had a lot of issues. And so I had to figure out who can he become if I put him in the right set of circumstances to thrive, if I desire to understand and listen to his unique language, and if I celebrate his unique expression of the outcome of what we learn together. So like that's how I see leadership and mentorship. I think it's more about shaping and supporting and nurturing. And sometimes that means letting people go through struggle and letting them make their own damn mistakes. And you see something 6 months in the future and you know they're going to walk right into that mistake and you need to let them do that. But that's also how I love people. So I don't think it just has to be about dogs or kids. For me, that's actually how I handle relationships with people in my life, friends, partners, coworkers, is like letting people experience themselves.
Mhm.
Man, you
That was
really
so
named
good.
it. Yeah, you named it all. Say like I left something out. My leadership improved as my relationship to my children, my adult children. Like what people see, like legit. When I stopped being an overbearing mom to my adult children, like as soon as they turned 18. So you have to think about it. When my daughter turned 18 and I started having to see who I was, like I was still a good leader in community, but what people see in me when, and thank you all for sharing your perspective of me. This ain't been easy at all because you talk about somebody that's been called out a lot. Okay. So everything you all talked about, it allows me to see that growth is attainable, that what we get intentional about, it works. And when you work on yourself, and I mean you really get to the root cause of your problems and you start to see what your issues really are, that's when you really start to show up. So my kids, when they started showing me who I was, shit had to change. When I started practicing harm reduction on my family, myself, my life, when I started meeting myself where I was, when I started seeing who I was and accepting who I was and seeing that I had shit to work on and that I was unhealed and that I was trying to fix, manage, and control everything around me and all the people, even my snakes. Like when I had to really sit with that was when I started to see how to move different and be intentional. What you all heard them say, it brought tears. I might get a little corny myself now, but it brought tears to my eyes because that I saw myself. I was able to look at that version of me that was called out. My cousin called me a selfish bitch when I was 20. when I was told that I didn't care about nobody but myself. When I was in a marriage that failed, and I could tell people that it takes both and. When my kids can love their parents because I never talked shit about them. I owned a lot of what I bought into those situations. You all just showed me that it's possible, and exactly what Zay said. When I talk to people what should be in leadership, I never want someone to be like, even my kids, don't be like me. Be like
People.
you. And if you don't know who that is, then you got some work to do, just like me. I had work to do. So I love everything. You need to write that down in a book and
Mhm.
sell that shit because people need to see that. That is an expectation for leadership.
Yeah. And I definitely resonated with that because I think before my cats, as the same thing with me before my cats, I was really good with leading myself, which obviously was, very selfish things. But I think when I had them as a responsibility, I think that's when my state of mind changed. Something that Zay said rings out with me, like, putting him in a position where his characteristics thrive, right? And a lot of people, and that resonates with me because, in my opinion, that's what a leader is supposed to do, right? And Shrita, we talk about this so much where I say, I really think people have weaponized meeting people where they at, right? Because
Mhm.
that's only half of the saying. That means it's half of the work, right? And when we think about them 4 years, 5 years of 100,000 overdose deaths each year, what do we think about? And what I think about in those cases is like, yeah, I'm always here for my people. But then what I'm more focused on is the not leaving them there part. You understand? And that goes also into the accountability we show our leaderships instead of bowing down, having that coordinated fire, having to talk to them like, hey, this is where you're going wrong. Because let me tell you something, if all we're doing is meeting people where they at, we're not really teaching them anything. And it's the same thing with our community that we serve. Yes, we could keep meeting them where they at. That's fine. We could give them all the supplies. We could give them these little peanut jobs that we call a peer job and all of that. And well, y'all know y'all don't plan on promoting them no farther than that. That's fine. But now, if you're not going to be teaching people different things like self accountability, self awareness, emotional regulation, what leadership is, and what it isn't, those kind of things to look forward to. If we're not really trying to promote that in them, I'm gonna be honest, then we're kind of creating a revolving door,
Mhm.
like, and that's all people is just gonna be the same thing. We're gonna keep on seeing overdoses. We're gonna keep seeing the same person that's been in our services for 10, 20 years without a step forward, no kind of progress in their life, It scares me, these executive orders. These executive orders scare me because we are stuck on meeting people where they at, and we don't know how damaging that is to our community now, that we're actually doing them harm with just meeting them where they at. If we're not preparing them for what's about to come, like there's people right now getting arrested just for being homeless. There's people just getting targeted, and that's it. And we're still over here, like, with these models that we've had for decades, and it ain't worked to begin with. And we still hold them faith to them that they will someday work. Now we need a whole different approach, Giving some people something to look forward to is one of the most important things that we could give anyone, whether there's a community member or someone that holds leadership space.
I agree. I agree. I think that we do people a disservice when we say we'll meet them where they're at, but then we also leave them there. We don't guide, we don't help, we don't actually walk with them on this journey. Yes, I guess in a sense we do because we're there to support, but like we don't do anything. And I'm not clumping us all together, but like there's not enough done, I think,
Yeah.
in the what goes next because we're feared. There's fear of saying like you're pushing recovery or you're pushing this and you're pushing, and it's not that. Is I am pushing you to find something that works for you, whatever that is.
And I wanted to, and you actually led to, is it Krupa? Am I pronouncing that right? Let me
Upa
know.
Patel.
Okay.
Is that
I
I'm
wanna
trying to
I
figure out
wanna
if that's my homie from I think it's like Colorado or something like that.
well, I wanna highlight what
Colorado.
Krupa said though, right? Like I think that is valid. And I think that's a part of the conversation around, especially around harm reduction and what people's messaging is doing. Because what you're saying right now, Krupa, is in my opinion, my professional and my own lived experience opinion, the fact that we have taken and separated meeting you where you're at did not involve opportunity, like what you just mentioned, was not okay and was not harm reduction. Harm reduction is meeting that individual and opening up to the idea that they're going to share what is needed so that they can get the recovery, get on the pathway of recovery that they need to be on. You know, and I'm glad I appreciate that you took the opportunity and spoke up and said this in the chat, because this is exactly what we're doing in my organization. Being a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor and working from this lens has held me accountable for how the treatment and recovery spaces have harmed so many people, because we have not had culturally rooted recovery programs. Me pushing and being a part of
Mm,
a system I don't want to really be a part of, but I'm a part of it, which is the Kentucky Board of Alcohol and Drug Counselors as a board member, is because we need to change those spaces, because this should not be an either or, it should be a both and. And people feeling like they're being heard, because if you were heard and seen properly and invited into the conversation to speak on what you need, and not people assume they know what you need, then that would have happened. So I appreciate you sharing this, because this is why we need more spaces like this. It is not okay. It is
Yeah.
mm,
not okay. And it's absolutely okay for us to push for more culturally rooted recovery programs. This is not only a white systemic problem. Substance use disorder is not.
And
And
not
we need
only
to
that,
change these systems for that.
but you know, I've seen so many people push either or. You're either a recovery activist or advocate, I mean, excuse me, or you're a hardcore harm reductionist, but and I question a lot of people on either or, but especially the harm reductionists, because I don't know what harm reduction a lot of people came from, but I come from the three branches of harm reduction, which is safer use, managed use, and abstinence as
mhm.
being the pillars of harm reduction, and not the end or be all, but meaning we believe in meeting everyone where they are and not leaving them there, right? So if somebody needs abstinence, I mean, a rehab or a detox, we're gonna refer them there, whether we see things differently, but like someone said, we have the same end goal. I've seen people go either or, and I'm like, but the harm reduction is, I'm like, but isn't it all inclusive, Um, and that's where the problem goes. At some point we have to be very realistic with people. We have to, tell them like, look, this is how people gonna look at you. Um, hey, do you think managed use would be a better fit? And then even, do you think that, going abstinent for a bit might be a good fit? Those don't have to be hateful things or judgmental things, to tell people. It's not like you're like, I don't like you, because you're using drugs, go up in a detox. No, it's all about options. And people forget that that's what our people need, access and options. So if it's either or, then you kind of going against, what we're actually, trying to put out there, so. I was die hard recovery, but I mean, not, excuse me, harm reduction. But over the last 2, 3 years, I've definitely had a bigger understanding about where I went wrong. Okay, so I wanted, so we, um, we touched on this a little bit, but I'm wondering, what are your opinions when we talk about what are the differences between including people with lived experience and living experience and actually sharing power with them. Not only that, but why is it important to, to consider lived and living experience um as being essential in leadership, not just as representation, but also in decision making power? I know it's a long question, but what's your experience been with both of these factors, and is it something we need to work on, something that we good on, or
Well, I've been tokenized. I mean, anytime I walk into a space and I'm the only melanated, beautiful queen sitting in there, I'm always like, where's everybody else? And again, I think it's up to us. If you call yourself a leader in this space, now this is accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Don't y'all go disappearing off of this Zoom now, because this is accountability. And when you're sitting there doing your budget, if you are not creating pathways for people with lived experience that work in your organization for workforce development and to move up, then you are tokenizing folks and you're using them. And if you're off camera, then this moment of self-reflection is good, because we have to own that. And I'm gonna tell you an experience I had with someone who reached out to me last year, and we're not sharing names because we're not bashing folks, but someone who reached out to me who wanted one of my former clients, who's openly shared that I was a clinician to her at one point, and she's a person with lived experience, a Black trans woman who is an amazing representation of her community and shares her experiences and has been on platforms. And the way that they were going to compensate her was to give her a voucher for a Lyft. She has a car. Now they were going to pay me. And so I
Oh, heck
politely,
no.
in a very direct way, responded in the email and said, absolutely not. And I took her off. And I said, I'm not going to do this unless you rework this. I said, because this should have been something that you already planned for. You asked for one. I'm a person now, I have these letters and all these certificates, but someone with lived experience is valuable to your organization, and you're going to be making money off of anything that comes from this. And so they immediately reached out to me and apologized and asked, what should they do? And ultimately, they ended up paying her. They ended up taking her to dinner. They ended up compensating her properly. And from that, she was asked to go to another conference where it wasn't a discussion about it. She was automatically compensated. And I shared that because there was a couple of different ways that I could have responded. I could have ignored it and said, well, I'll figure it out and I'm getting paid. Or I could do what I did. And I think as a leader, as a person with integrity, though, that's it. That is a thing for me. What Bree shared, I speak on it a lot. In ethics, I live by my code of ethics. I feel like
Shoot, I heard that multiple times.
yeah. So I made sure that happened, but I also now train people and talk to people. So I'm encouraging leaders. We cannot tokenize our people. We don't get to use people either, because that energy comes back in different ways. So if you experience things in life, understand that it all comes back to us. And it may be because of the energy you're putting out, right? So we have to think about that. Again, as a Black woman, I've been tokenized. And actually, like my sister, Shamika Parrish Wright, who's also a councilwoman here and a candidate for mayor for the Louisville, city of Louisville, she gave me this quote. And I always say every time I use it, I'm going to give her kudos. I choose how to be used today. I know that I'm being used. So when I walk into spaces, I always tell people the next time I come in here, though, I need there to be more than one of me. I need more people. So I'm going to bring you more people. Some people on these platforms, I've asked to be a part because I said, you're not going to tokenize me. And these are just examples of things you can do to be revolutionary. Because that's what I think of myself as, is a revolutionary. That's it. And so when we walk into spaces, this is what I expect. I expect people that I work with. I expect people I work with in general. I'm always asking people, who's on your team? Who helped you create that? I had Jose, and this is just to show you in real time. I want people to hold me accountable. I asked Jose to go check our peer group just so he could see. When I
Mhm.
tell you I'm working with people with lived experience and they're being compensated, they're going to be paid. I need my colleagues to hold me accountable if they don't see it happening. So he checked it out. That's what we do, because it is so disrespectful to have people in a space knowing that you're going to take that lived experience and go for a grant and get funding and leave them on the side. That's using, is pimpish, and is not okay.
Yep. You know what, Shrita, I always think about, because the first time I heard you say that was in Florida, that you know you're being tokenized, but you're going to choose how people use you. And that's something that I've, since then, it's like stuck in here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think that I know that when I was running a certain program, I made sure that even when folks came by to do the what is it, questionnaires, assessments, and we had a group for the city come in and offer $5 gift cards. I was like, my participants aren't going to do that. Y'all can catch them outside. Y'all can figure out another way to connect with them, but they will not be doing that because you guys are getting hundreds of thousands of dollars off that grant. That's what your research project is for. So I'm going to need them to be compensated fairly. Do you know those people? Because we had the most engagement. Very proud of that. I had the most engagement in the community. So that $5 gift card, I think it was like $5 or $10 gift card, turned into $100 gift card. And anytime someone wanted to do research study, Benjamins, um, you are allowed to come in, of course, because we want to collaborate, but you're not going to use my participants for just you and then just to say, like, I did this. No, you're going to compensate them. We did not accept the $5 or $10 gift cards. And if they had $10 gift cards, because that's what their budget and their grant allowed, that's fine. I'm going to need you to give them at least 3 of them. At least, depending on, if it was just a test or if it was just like a little questionnaire, you're going to give them multiples per person. Because then where is the trust and integrity? Where's the trust that would break the trust that the community has in us? Like, we're quick to sell you off for a partnership? Absolutely not. So yeah.
Yeah.
Some internal conflict, I think, with so for context, like I work in like lived experience focused work only, and have been in peer support for a little over 5 years. And I guess for me, I struggle with how to answer the question because what I think about is like what kind of lived experience are we talking about? Because I'm in a field where like people say things like, you're the expert of your own experience, which people love that. And people say, that's the qualifier. And then, when I'm working in like non-carceral crisis work, or like alternatives to policing, there's a lot of ways that lived experience can also be weaponized. So for me, like this is unpopular, but like everyone has lived experience. It's what you're doing with it that matters for me. Every single person in the world has some form of lived experience. So when I'm thinking about like peer support or like harm reductionists, it's like it's how you're utilizing that matters to me. I don't think just like blind representation matters because then they always pick the people who are abstinence focused, who are the most palatable, who have the highest level of privilege. There's also like a lot of really toxic weaponization of like faith backgrounds, people who have benefited from systems that are like touted as like lived experience inclusion because they're looking for people with lived experience tends to already appease the opinions they're trying to promote. So I think lived experience without like an equity focus and without like a justice focus and a power analysis is completely useless, and actually sometimes can like undo what people are trying to accomplish because of the amount of internalized biases that people carry that they've like usually got through interaction with systems. So I think like I guess the difference for me is like it's not whether or not to include lived experience, but like what specific kind of lived experience, what perspective is connected to that lived experience, and what purpose is that serving? And is it truly actually expertise then? Because I mean, you could hire, I do non-carceral crisis training, and you could hire a bunch of other people who also have experiences of hearing voices and seeing visions, and they could go into that training contract and say the most fucked up shit, and the state will take it as, you know, the highest level of expertise because it's a person with lived experience. And it's like, whoa, you don't speak for the entire community. So I sometimes have like a lot of conflicting feelings about the commodification of lived experience, the elevation of lived experience. And sadly, there are some people who work in our movements that may not identify directly with having lived experience, but sometimes actually do better work because they have a stronger analysis of power and they have less ego. So yeah, I would rather, I'm almost like twisting it into like a different question of just like, I think I could answer something like, what does meaningful inclusion of lived experience mean and sharing power? But I don't think like I don't think there's a difference if the lived experience isn't actually functioning the way it's supposed to, if that makes sense.
And I think that's the conversation. I think exactly is that. Is this intentional and meaningful engagement, right? I love one of the questions that were improved on the CDC application. Actually, I think it came from National Harm Reduction. I came into Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition when we had the HEP Connect grant, and I was so amazed, right? So I was new to this role and new to some spaces in harm reduction. So I was like, yes, this is so cool. They were like, what's your meaningful engagement? I was like, that's so cool. It has to be meaningful. So when I say lived experience for my outreach team, you know, how we did our interviews and how we talked about life. Everybody don't have to come in there and say, I used a syringe, right? It's what's your connection? Like you know, interviews I got from some friends of mine and asking them questions about what didn't they like about their interviews. And then we created our interviews. So like on your best day, when you feeling like you're the shit, how do you dress? And people are like, what? You asking me, what you mean by it? Like, yeah, like I want you to dress like that. When you feel good. Isn't that better than saying, I need you to be you know, business professional or semi-casual? Like, what the hell is that to a person who has never come to it? So on your best day, when you're feeling good, when you're feeling great. One of my team members who came in, they were feeling good on their first day. Now, their best day, they came in for an interview, but the day they came in to work, I mean, and he's passed away. But when I think of TK, he came in one day, he had on his little bitty shorts because it was hot as hell, and he had on his little flip-flops. All the skin was showing, and he was appropriate because the weather was hot. And I didn't go, hey, yo, you're inappropriate. I was like, TK, what happens when a syringe accidentally falls out at the syringe site? Like, let's talk. And that's how we learned how to talk about appropriate attire versus you're inappropriate. Then when I talk about like the space we're building with the Training Institute for Peers, you know, the mix is of people who've experienced treatment episodes similar to what Krupa shared. The mix is people who are still using. The mix is people who have going through whole programs and are actual certified peer support. Because the idea is that I'm creating a training institute for peers. It needs to be so many different perspectives, male, female, non-binary. Who else is going to be a part of these spaces where we could get the influence? So for leaders on here, we beg you that if you're just saying, I got people with lived experience, is that meaningful or is it tokenism? Is it taken advantage of or exploitive? Is it pimping? What are we doing here? Right? Like that's dope. Again, I'm about to have Zay write up a manual because how she's framing the things, I think it would sell, especially to people who need to hear it a certain way. Jose, so can you make that happen? We sit down and talk today and we get that going.
Naturally. I do agree. How can I say this? And once again, it just ties into just how I view. I come from a different time in harm reduction. Like the leaders that put me up, we're talking about Sam knows them, and thank you for joining, Sam. The King of New York is here. Um, but when I think of On Point, it was Nairi before On Point. That's where the time that I come from. And the leaders that actually made sure that I got into like the Uprise program, they made sure that I got New York State peer certified at the same time. It was people like Nila, Fernando, Martha, Dwayne, Creatia. These was peers, but they wasn't this meet you where you at peers. Like they was the meet you where you at and not leave you there because let's say you did something out of line. It wasn't no, it's okay. It was a, why would you do that? Do you know now what that's gonna bring? And they'll break everything down to me. What's gonna come from it, right? And not even in a judgmental way. Have a conversation about it, and then let's keep it moving. Um, giving those what do you call them? Like morals and principles. It was people like them that gave it to me, but it wasn't pacifying me. It wasn't through pacifying. Tino Fuentes, God bless the dead. Um, that person, that man gave me a job, like a full time, my first full time job in harm reduction. In less than a month of me becoming a peer, which was a huge jump. My first month, I ended up getting drunk on the job. And on the job, like, and I'm the supervisor of the outreach site. And he comes to pick me up before we drop off everything at St. Anne's, and he goes, "You know you fucked up, right?" And I'm like, "What?" He was like, "You're drunk." And I was very combative with him. I say this story all the time because it was monumental for me. And he was like, "Yo, you're not in trouble. You're not fired. You're good, but you have a decision to make." He said, "You're a Puerto Rican from Brooklyn. You already come with a reputation. You already come with every stereotype you could think of. You got a choice. You're either going to uphold those stereotypes or today you're going to start changing that whole reputation." And, I'm going to be honest, like, that was what I needed to hear. I never came to work drunk. I barely even smoked, coming to work. It was right. Representation, it means so much. But a certain person would have told me, "It's okay, don't worry, and let me do that." And let's just say, and I'm going to the extreme, I go and get a job at Wells Fargo. I get fired the first week for even doing something like that, right? So if our job is to help someone thrive in any job outside of harm reduction, why isn't these conversations being had on default? Why is it always meet them where they at, meet them where they at, meet them where they at?
That's what I talk about. That's what I mean when I say like the lack of boundaries and people being labeled as difficult to work with when it's like if you care for someone, right? I love my dogs. Anyone that knows where's the thing? I love my dogs. Dogs over people all the time. Well, my dogs over anywhere else. Um, you correct. You correct, you call out and you call in love. So when we have either staff members or, that are coming in, and as a leader, you're supposed to set those boundaries. Like, hey, it doesn't mean that it's a negative thing. It's correction, it's love, it's setting boundaries, is helping the person realize what steps they need to take to be able to like to grow, right? Because some things that I see that are allowed to happen in certain spaces wouldn't run at McDonald's. I worked at McDonald's, loved McDonald's. but it's like we're too passive. We're just very like, oh, it's okay, we baby people. And so there's no room for growth when you don't give people structure. I know I needed structure. I know I needed to be called out and called in and been like, hey, but maybe this is not the best way. Okay, this is not a good example of me correcting my dogs. It's just because the other one's left. But yeah.
Like what you just said, and I guess I want to just add like my style of that, or like my spin on that is and I think like to go back to even the conversation about like animals and kids and stuff is like I don't think those things have to feel paternalistic because it's about nurturing. It's about nurturing a relationship when there is a power differential, it's about responsibility and caretaking also. And I think everyone's style is really different, but like because people can be so poor with how they receive correction, frankly, because of their own baggage or their own bullshit or whatever, their insecurity. I also think like a variety of like strategies works really well for that because I'm the type of person where I am more likely to and this is actually from dog training too, so structure, boundaries, and discipline. But I replace discipline with consequence. And consequence isn't positive or negative, actually. If you look it up, it's a neutral word. It just means the outcome of whatever has happened. And so I am a fan of because of my tendencies in the past and early on in leadership to, rush to correct, usually out of fear of like me watching someone make a mistake I know is preventable or a harm I know is preventable. What I actually learned works best, at least for me personally and the teams I've worked with, is to step back and allow people to meet the consequences that they are experiencing and then to be there in the aftermath of the support and this is I think it's a just shaping again is like it's strategizing like how did we get to where we were, what do you think led to that outcome, how do you want to do things differently next time. And like I think I don't agree with the like meet people where they're at and like don't take them anywhere. But sometimes people do need to be I think sometimes we need to leave people where they're at so they can get themselves out of there. And I'm the type of person where like I have personally learned, this is also again a reflection of me. I learned through coping with distress, and I have been a person historically that had, I think, a very low tolerance for distress, but I was a high intensity person who was always cycling in distress. And the people that taught me how to work through that were not the ones that stopped me before I've, tripped over my own fucking shit and busted my shit in front of everyone. They were the people that, were there in the aftermath and didn't rush to fix it or didn't rush to correct me or anything. They just let me have my own process and they were like, damn, you really fell like that. So sometimes I think just like I don't want to describe myself as a hands-off person, but I think, and I got this feedback actually from a staff person like just last week. Like somebody was freaking out about a lot of change we're having in our office, and I was watching another person go to their aid and try to make it okay, and she was just uncomfortable, and I just sat there and I just watched her, and I just breathed and let her be uncomfortable. And she circled back to me later and was like, you know what? Thank you for not like, you just let me feel like that and I will get over it. I was like, girl, I know you'll get over it. Like the kids will be all right. And I think like how we respond to people like having challenges or like being in the places that they're in, like the fixing, helping, solving can sometimes look like trying to be preventative with them, but then we're not allowing people to learn through difficulty and build resilience. And we overcorrect sometimes because it's like, well, I don't, it should never have to be as hard for me as it was, or it should never have to be as hard for anyone else as it was for me. So I don't want anybody to ever go through this. And then we don't let them go through anything. And then you sheltered, and then you don't understand the reality of a job. So I think it's like, it's just always being in that careful place of like stretching somebody into growth, which sometimes looks really ugly and looks really hard, but like let them have that so they can build their own capacity to go through that. And then they can go on to teach someone else to withstand their own difficulties.
I think hats off to my clinical skills because that's exactly what we learned was enabling. So I'm not in this work about enabling anybody. Um, And I'm very transparent about that because I had to work on it in my house with my kids, letting them, I love what you said, leave them where they're at. I've met them, saw, and watching my kids have to deal with life issues and the consequences of their actions have been hard. So it's the same thing, you know, the only way we learn is to go through it
The
and
only
to deal
thing
with
that
it.
I the only thing that I have on that, and this is I won't put no names. I won't even put where I was what happened on this. But um actually I have to. But this same program I spoke about, Uprise, right? At first, let me just say, I agree with what you said, Zay, because there's like everybody's not ready, right? But there's is a thin line, and it should always come from the person to say, nah, it's not my time
Mm-hmm.
yet. So, and that leads into this conversation, this situation that I'm bringing up in that same program, right? I was a participant of NIRI for about 8 9 years before I was accepted into Uprise, right? And every year I applied twice. So that's two applications because it was like a 4 or 5 month program, month in between, and then the next cycle. And look, I'm not gonna paint the picture like I'm an angel. I was a knucklehead. I was a firecracker. I was like all around, just like I was a bug out, So, but I knew what I wanted to do. Like the moment I learned about this program, I was like, oh, that's it. And twice a year, that's um that's 8 times 16 applications to 18 applications. And I was denied every time in a worse way though, because there was a rule that said, you have to get an interview. Like basically that was policy. And I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood why though, but it still didn't hit me well when I finally asked the person. This is after I got accepted to Uprise, after I became New York State certified, after I became an actual leader in this field. I asked this person, because we was cool after that. I was like, why was I never accepted? Like and you know how many times I applied? He said, yeah, of course. I was responsible for managing it. And I was like, but why wouldn't you accept me? And he said, because I didn't think you was ready. And that wasn't for him to decide, right? It was for me to decide and for me to fuck up and or for him to guide me into a position that I would be ready. And I explained it to him, and he before I even explained it to him, he was like, I was dead wrong. So I'm like, I have so much respect for this person, but but that still told me that there was a level of like my life in another person's hands because they didn't think I was ready. Like I was left there and I didn't want to be there. I was doing everything I could to get out the hole. So, and honestly, my first harm reduction job was in St. Anne's. It actually completely changed me. Like I literally went from 100 to zero instead of 0 to 100. I went from 100 to zero real quick because it was a responsibility I never had. So ain't no telling. Maybe I would have fucked up that opportunity, but I think that it should be up to the person. So the only way I would leave a person there is if like they articulate that to me, like, look, I'm not ready. I appreciate what, and I've been there. I appreciate what you're doing for me, but this is what I'd rather do, and I'll leave it at that. Then.
I agree with you. And like, so I'm talking it's in terms of like an emotional relationship. So in a job
Mm,
setting, yes. In a direct service setting, yes. I'm talking about like when it's more like emotional relationship things, like when people are fucked up in the head because they have their own baggage, power issues, authority issues, whatever. And when the lack of self-work is impacting the way the work can get done. Um, or if you're doing community organizing with someone and they're like, hey, why am I not getting like the type of feedback from the community that I want to hear? Why are people not coming to my things? Why do I keep burning bridges? I think leaving people to do their own self work, that's what I mean by that, because we try to do the work on each other and then we try to make people into who we want them to be, to
Mm-hmm.
react the way we do, think the way we do, respond the way we do. And then it's like, why is this person not changing? Why is the way they feel not being different? It's like because they are who they are and they're in their own damn process. And I have to explain to people in my own movement, places of work, spaces I'm in, why I won't therapize them, why I won't emotionally coddle them out of their own process, why I cannot do the work for them per se, why like and why even how it's even taxing to me to like be the person to always be the receiver of the self-reflection. So in a work sense, yes, I agree with you. I'm talking about like leaving people to do their own self work, their own inner work, because I can't, that's not a journey I can take with you. I can, and it's not a journey that I need to, honestly, or that I even really
Definitely.
want to. That's your shit.
It's a journey nobody should take. It's always, I do agree with that. It's always on the person, like that includes, your well-being, that includes your recovery. It's always on the person because it's always up to the person's decision whether to stop or go. That's how I see it. Okay, next question, because we got that was a really good one. Oh my God.
That was really good.
We spoke about a lot, right? We spoke about in the beginning about, how in some situations, some people are pushed out of spaces,
Who you telling?
yo, we spoke about that. We spoke about, there are people who have tried to actually speak up on these situations and to no avail, we're gonna say, right? Okay. Well, and y'all spoke on it a little bit, well, mostly Shrita and Zay, not Zay, excuse me, Bree. Um, but why do y'all think people feel a pressure to stay silent when harm is happening within our movement, right? And then also, what has been the cost of that silence to the individuals and to the field as a whole? And who has had to pay the cost?
Those are really good questions. Y'all see
I
Jose got us
know.
on here talking deep on the Friday night, y'all. Like,
Listen,
for
man,
real. Y'all see
Listen, I
that?
had to go take an adult vitamin for this.
I
Okay,
So
couple of them.
listen,
I was supposed to be a rapper when I was young. It just didn't work out. But just to let you know, I know how to move a crowd.
I see you. This is good. You know, I I'm not a silent
I
person.
love how this is zooming in on your face all of a sudden.
Listen, I got that little thing going on.
Okay,
So,
love that.
uh,
Got that little thing going on.
I I I have a hard time with silence, and this is where I have to be patient with my people because when I see wrong, I am the see something, say something person. Um, and this is a moment where I pause because my family and my ancestors are part of the Black Panther Party, right? My stepfather is from the Black Panther Party. I was born and raised in Chicago, so we're talking about the Fred Hampton, his crew of people. Um, and I think about my mom and both of these individuals in my life, and including my other stepfather. I had three dads, my birth dad, and then my mother had two, stepfathers. So I had no daddy issues because I had, males around me to help build and guide me, my parental guides. But I think about I was the empowerment and Afrocentricity in my family and speaking up and knowing the consequences. I was working in a space where me speaking up, uh, it actually landed me being harmed. I was fired. You have to mute Bree, Sean. I muted her. And I ended up losing that role. And I'll never forget calling my mother crying. And she said, "Be quiet." I'll never forget it. People are like, "What she say?" She said, "Be quiet." She said, "You knew you was too Black. And you knew that when you speak up, that someone wasn't gonna like it." And so I stopped crying in the moment. I cried later because I had to go through some healing. Like, Mom, we have moments where we can be vulnerable. And you taught me how to be this real strong Black woman. And I had to learn that it was okay for me to hold vulnerability and to hold my sadness and grief and joy. And I can hold those things together, right? Like that's not weakness. So My mom's very strong and powerful, but there is a risk when you speak up and you speak out and you speak up in your own community. There's a risk of being outed. And Jose knows with our own conversations, because we've gone back and forth recently over a recent situation over an organization that is Black led, that before I ever get silent, I will step away. I will remove myself because, as they said, this, this is me. And this is important. And I'll be 47 on the 14th. Yes, I'm in Aries. That's why y'all see that fire. On the 14th, I'll be 47. And I'm like, I gotta still be here for my people, for me, my people, meaning my circle of love at home. My kids, my mom, my family, my cats, my dog, my snakes, all of them. I want to be here for them. I can't let people take me out. So if my accountability disrupts something in you and you feel you can no longer work with me or be a part of anything that I do, and my voice irritates you because I do have a standard and boundaries, integrity, morals, my own compass inside, then I'm gonna step away. And I'm not going to step away and not continue to do for my community. I will continue to move in my community. And I think that's the thing. I'm not willing to enable anyone. I'm not, because that's harmful when I don't say, hey, sis, you wrong. Hey, sis, this is something I've observed and we need to correct it. And I'm here to support you. And these are some things that maybe can help. At the same time, we can't continue down this path because this is hurting people, it's hurting you, it's hurting everyone. So if people can't handle that, I think that is Jose, back to your question. People are afraid. I'm not going to use the language because I'm trying to be respectful. But I went to a conference in Puerto Rico, the National Harm Reduction Conference in Puerto Rico, and I was in the Black Harm Reduction group. And I remember I want this slogan on a shirt, but they said it in that group, and it was scared ninjas don't get choices. If I operate out of just my fear and I don't move, then I don't get a choice of doing anything for myself. I don't make a move. I'm stagnant. I'm just going to stay right here. Things aren't going to always be comfortable, and we have to make decisions that may feel a little heavy and it may be scary. But deciding not to move is not a decision for me. So I just, people are scared. People are scared of losing funding. People are scared of losing. And for me, there's no money, no amount of money. There's nothing nobody can give me for the liberation of myself or my people. Like there's nothing you can do. So I'm not afraid of humans in that respect. I'm afraid of my ancestors being disappointed in me not moving in the way they created the path for me to move. Because my ancestors are jacking things up in the spiritual realm and making ways for me to move. So I don't care about what people have to say. I'm gonna move. And everybody don't like how I move all the time. Even Jose, he was upset with me about some decisions and we talked it through. And I love that about him. And Bree. Everybody on here, I don't agree with me all the time. But I think that's what makes us work together. That's
Yeah,
my thing.
and I'm gonna be honest. Um, there's a lot of people who through my career in harm reduction, but really in my life, if when I really started looking at it, but I'm gonna keep it on my time in this field. I've brought up so many ideas to people, and I've always been very direct in the way I talk, my messaging, but very respectful at the same time, right? But so many times people they 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 bring up the barriers for you,
Mhm.
and it's like how Hova, my boy Hova said on the song, my uncle, my uncle said I wouldn't sell a million records. I sold a million records like a million times. And when he broke down what he meant by that, it resonated with me so much. And it's really the story of my life. Like everybody has fears, and nobody could say that they fearless. Everyone has a fear. My fears really run different. I mean, I was 10 years sleeping in the street in the most gangster part of New York City. You're not gonna scare me easily. Me getting a couple of privileged people, feathers ruffled or pissed off, it don't scare me. Like that's nothing. I've been at gunpoint. I've been fought people with knives. Like, why would I be scared of that? Like, you understand? Like, so with that said, I hate when people tell me, yo, but what if this happened? What if that happens? So what? Like, if we're gonna keep on bringing up the what ifs with everything, yo, you know how much we're gonna get done? Not
Nothing.
gonna get nothing done because let me tell you something. You could do everything the right way, 100% right, nothing wrong, all completely flawless, and you're gonna piss somebody off. And our work, especially if you're in advocacy spaces and national spaces where it's mostly advocacy, there ain't no time to be scared because you're gonna hear it also from people. They not fearless to tell you they don't give a fuck about our people. Sometimes they even say it like that. I've been in front of a politician that straight up said that isn't my priority. It's just simple like that. Like, so I'm gonna be honest. I don't think us as people, I don't think we have the opportunity to be silent. I don't think that we ever should be willingly silent. And and honestly, that's why I even started this platform because I refuse. Like, I just refuse.
So I want to jump in, and I do want to preface this by a preface. I'm not sure you pronounce that, but by saying that I may be still a little burned. So I'm not saying I'm not. So I think that one of the reasons why folks stay silent is because they are, like you said, we're pushed out, we're penalized. It is very harmful, and the community, the other leaders, don't hold the people that are creating harms accountable. I will share, and I'm very transparent because no one's going to silence me. And that's one thing that I have one fear. I walk in fear every day that when I die, though I have a higher power, I have the Lord to answer to. And so no one's going to silence me in the world here on this earth, right? And so I have been harmed to the point where I've lost my housing, right? For speaking up against someone who is doing harmful and illegal things. Okay. And what happened? I was pushed out. Everybody knows. And I can say that I've had two people that were vocal, and I'm not gonna cry because I'm in the middle of boxes and stuff, so it ain't no point. But two people that were vocal and that had moved with integrity, and that's Shreeta and Mark. And anybody can take it however you want. No one else really put what we talk about on panels, what I hear, what I see these people talk about accountability and equity and all of this shit. I saw everyone be silent because it's easier to walk past things and move along and look the other way than to hold people accountable because nobody wants to do that. And so shame on them. I am probably not in the best position right now, but at least I can say that I'm not scared of none of these hoes. Ain't not one of them
That's it.
scares me.
That's it.
But that's why people stay silent, because do you know what that is? To lose everything over having that integrity and not only the integrity, but like really being about the work that we say we are, right? Because we talk about holding folks accountable. We talk about being transparent. We talk about advocating for each other, for not even each other, for strangers, right? Because most of our participants, when we first meet them, they're strangers. We don't know these people. But again, what I've been learning is that there's a lot of people that are just performative, because it doesn't mean that there should have been. I'm not expecting for like guns to be drawn, right? And like, but accountability and to mend a situation. And so I think that we can't ask people. I will never ask someone to not be silent, to call everything out, because I know what the repercussions of being that person is. And it's dangerous. And even in this community where we say we're not about that, like this is what we fight for, it's still very dangerous and it's very harmful. So I think I don't want to hear, well, I mean, people can say whatever, right? But I don't want to hear we don't have, and it's not a jab to you, just like in general, right? We don't have the choice we do have the choice. And when you speak up, you put everything on the line. And some people are just not ready for that. I can't ask everyone to be Buffy and jump into the hell mouth like I did. Everyone's not built for that. You lose everything. But not only do you lose everything, like, I will use me, like housing and crap, but like you lose trust in the community and the people that you work with. And that's why people stay silent. Because I think that a lot of leadership, I think that a lot of things that we speak are from here out, but we don't walk but again, and I'm not saying this because like favoritism or anything, but Shreeta got me through from day one through the very end. And what I learned is, you know how she just said, like, she talks about ethics and stuff? I had 4 calls. And on the 3rd one, she said, you got one more time to call me before I talked about it. And that's why I say that's the kind of leader that I hope to be. But you can't ask people to speak up. You can't. I won't. I know I won't, because I know that you could lose everything. And so it's not fair. Everyone's not ready for that. I'm cool.
Yeah.
Because I know how to cry and I know how to fight. But I don't know that everyone else is okay with being in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I said earlier that I'm sorry, Shrita. That's why I said
No, you're not.
earlier that, you know, I don't think people understand like the power that they have, like, and we got to do something to actually make our people understand that power, because we could get so much done coming together. And I could see why people will be scared. Everyone's in siloed. Nobody promotes collaboration. Nobody really promotes teamwork and, putting together, like, I remember ACT UP, the drug users unions, all of those, those came with a bunch of people with like, nah, that's it. Let's get together. Let's do this. And once again, we don't have that fearlessness no more. So,
But
yeah.
we do. And we do, and you're doing it, right? Like, Jose, this is it. And Zay's
Yeah, this
doing
is a
it, and
space.
Bree's
Yep.
doing it. And I think the point of even creating this space is to show that there's going to be tears, that there's going to be tension. There's going to be space where we're not doing it the same way, that we talk about this differently, and we're building. So I think it's the opportunity for us to change our language, that this is the space. You are doing it. You know it. Hearing Bree even reflect, like she said, I'm not going to tell people. And And the gag is, ain't that what who says that? The gag is, y'all know what I'm talking about. Anyway, and the gag
Oh,
is,
damn.
what happens, Bree, is exactly what Zay says. Someone will come to you one day and you're gonna share it, you're gonna share your experience. You're
Oh,
gonna
I'm sharing
say
it
to
now.
them, you could,
Far and
you could
wide.
speak up, or Jose, you could speak up, and this is the risk that you're gonna put on the line. But at the same time, we don't, I think as leaders, we don't get to hold back the consequences of those decisions we made. Because in those conversations we had, Bree, I said, you may be ostracized.
Hmm.
You may have people look at you. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with it? Because for me, I tell people, I'm gonna tell you what hurts me more, y'all. Because there's shit that hurt me. It hurts me when the people look like me. Because I have a love song for my community. Like for people that look like me, I have an actual song and I'm gonna put the artist in there. And I want every one of y'all to listen to it because it's the dopest song to me. But it's my love song for my community because there is moments where I be like, man, I love my community. I want to beat the shit out of them. I want to take my belt off and just slap them because they're not listening and they're not following, they're not organizing, and they're doing this. So, yeah, yes, all skin folk and kinfolk, exactly.
We
So,
learned that.
we learned it, but it's not even we learned it. I think it 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 was reaffirmed and we were
Mhm.
reminded because we've been in workspaces enough, but what Bree did in this moment, I think the bigger piece, the takeaway for me and for everyone else is that having the space to do this, to say, this has harmed me. Having the space, which is why I keep going back to people saying, hey, leaders in here. If you're a leader, if you're recognized like that, pay attention to these moments because we are being harmful to each other. It's harmful when we don't hold each other accountable, when we allow people to continue to get money for their agencies and they're playing with the money and then they're going to other places and asking for more money and you know they ain't do shit with it. They ain't produce nothing. Stop allowing them
Not
to
a
do that.
damn thing.
Right. Stop allowing them to do that to us. Stop allowing them to say all Black people spend money recklessly because we don't. We don't act like that. Stop allowing the co-signing. Stop being complicit. Stop being complicit by allowing people to show up like that. We're all responsible for that.
Right. Because I think that what happens is that, and so in my situation, I've tried, I don't want to victimize myself because, like Shreeta said, I knew what I was doing. And I was like, okay. Because again, my integrity and can I go to sleep at night? Right. Like that at the end of the day, I got to sit with myself. So do I stay quiet or do I say, hey, just BT dub, this is happening? Because I got to sit with myself at night. I think that what I've learned, what I take away from this is that there's not even love. Not again, not for me specifically, but I would say like for the other person, the one that's caused me the harm, the one that's caused the harm, because no one cared enough to correct them. No one quite cared enough to call in because it shouldn't have to be a call. So it yes, it's a call out, but it's a call out and call in. It's a hey, how do we fix this? What's going on? What's the big issue? Conversation, community, whatever. And so that's what makes me the most sad in the situation that we don't really care for each other because not only to hell with me, but also to hell to that person. And that's what hurts, not the most, because a lot of other things hurt, but that's what hurts me and what like makes me think that's why I say when you lose more than just like material or material like housing and stuff, you lose hope and you lose trust in the work. in the community and unfortunately in some of the colleagues. And so, how do you move past that? How do I move past that as a leader and what I want to bring into whatever next space I'm in? I know for a fact that I do not want to be in any one specific place anymore. But like as a leader, how do I now show up? Right now in this moment, I know that I can't show up at all. And I know that because I'm burned, I know myself. So I know I have personally right now at this moment, nothing good to give to be in a position of leadership because it ain't nothing good going on right now. But like that self-reflection that comes from the accountability that comes from folks like friends like Shreeta that hold me accountable because then Sharita holds me accountable too. Mark holds me accountable. I have a lot of people that hold me accountable, but like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this or maybe you shouldn't do that. And so that's like what I think we are missing. And that is where I think I would say that why people don't want to speak up because it takes a lot from you. It takes a lot from the community. But yeah.
Yeah, man. Thanks for, first of all, thanks for being vulnerable and thanks for sharing that. And I definitely relate. It was a good 2, 3 years that I was on my like rampage shit, just calling everything out. And that's sort of the thought process. That's what I was explaining now. I have no choice but to look at people with good intention just because of how heavy that shit is. And then also something that, people don't realize. Once again, you don't know how mentally you could hurt someone. Like, you over here crying, in front of everyone, being vulnerable, because of somebody else's fucking bullshit, right? People don't understand, what impact and what magnitude of the impact is gonna be, when they do, little things like this. Um, and I definitely feel for you. And that's something that I definitely had to and have to personally deal with now in my life, my livelihood constantly being threatened because I got a big ass mouth and stuff like that. So, I really feel for you. And once again, I'm gonna say it, shame on them motherfuckers, man. Like straight like that.
But see, like Jose, let me say something, right? It's not only, yes, crappy situation I'm in, but do you know that this is easily flipped as now whistleblowing, right? And now who wants you in their space? Because you're gonna call things out, but isn't that what you, not to say I'm over here snitching to satisfy on people, but like, do we care about the community? And then what are the limits? Like, at what do we cover each other? And it's okay to do things and be harmful if we cover each other. So like that there's so many things that I am like learning and unpacking because of this situation, right? Because it's like now not only yes, lost crap, that thing, but now how I'm viewed. Because, well, do we want her here? Because she'll speak up. But I think that that's what any organization would want to make sure that community is served, that people walk with integrity and are holding each other accountable. But I genuinely don't think that that's really what's wanted. I think that's what sounds good and that what we want in theory, but I don't think that that's really what folks are looking for. And so that's also why I'm saying I don't want to be in any one place because I don't want to know anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to know anything because again, integrity, ethics for me, and then it's the how do I sleep at night thing. I don't want to know.
Yeah. Do you want to share, Zay? I want to be mindful of our time. I know I said we here to 9. That was not the intention. I just wanted to put space for the intro in the beginning, but I do want to cover 2 questions and the closing question before, and stuff. But do you have anything you want to share on this, Zay?
Yeah, I was just thinking that I have a couple of different things. I think that just from my work in like specifically like non-police crisis work and conflict work, what I notice is there's a lot of things are called harm, and sometimes we're using language that doesn't always like fully encapsulate it. So like Adrienne Marie Brown wrote "We Will Not Cancel Us," and she talks about the difference between like harm, conflict, misunderstanding, miscommunication, abuse, and violence. And when we use the word harm to describe everything, nobody even knows what the hell is hurting. And then I think when we talk also about repair, everybody wants to name the harm and call out, but there's no constructive, strategic, slowed down way of responding. Our movements are so reactive and emotionally driven, and there's so much unhealed, unprocessed crap that when things do come up to the surface, the community is just completely unable to actually respond, whether that means like, and I think we're also unable to differentiate like where is it coming from, which is another issue. So I think like a couple of things like when harm is happening, rather than acknowledge like we're like okay, well, what type of harm is this? Like relational harm, which then is frankly none of my business because I'm not going to like police how people move. That's just my personal desire. I'm not going to be like, hey, the way you talk to that person in this meeting, da 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 da, like you could just be an asshole. That's how I feel. I think that people choose to stay silent when they recognize that speaking up is either actually not going to achieve a tangible change, is only going to detract from their own energy and capacity and reserve, is putting their family and their livelihood and their community at direct risk. Because also, if speaking up and shaking things up means that like your program could lose funding, or like in movement, we don't talk enough about shared risk. And I guess like speaking from experience, like having someone that I work really closely with just get let go by her organization after almost 30 years because she fucked up, honestly, and her experience was harmful and she caused harm. I kind of had to ask her, I was like, what do you want? Everyone to quit their jobs and protest for you? So we also like hold our movements at unrealistic expectations to resolve the harm that the system actually created. Because the problem actually is probably with someone that you can't touch. The problem is someone at the county. The problem is someone in government. The problem is someone who has legal protections above you that you are not even in the same spaces, in the same corridors, operating in the same circles with. So I think a lot of people choose to not speak up because what we don't want to do actually is grieve. We don't want to sit with the reality of the powerlessness. And then we also think that nonprofits are movements, and they're not. You cannot do activist work on paid time. And my mentor taught me this. So I think we get our heart broken and we quote lose faith in the work because we're trying to do activism. We're trying to do human relational work and we think we're not in the system, but the nonprofits are the system. And like I'm a Nigerian second generation immigrant. So like I have family, half my family is in West Africa. The NGOs are the biggest perpetrators of harm. And it's actually that people don't want to locate their own position within that harmful system themselves and realize that they have been perpetuating that harm as well. And so we get people hurting themselves, doing work that's supposed to matter, hurting other people, continuing to do the work, blaming everyone else around them. And it's like, you just don't, it's kind of like racism, like you just don't see the water you're swimming in. And so until we contend with the reality of the nonprofit structure, the capacity, limitation, and oppression of the people around us that we're working in proximity to, and the fact that people just frankly make different choices and have to find their own ways to survive. Like I think like forgiveness, compassion, transparency, and understanding, and striving. Like my favorite saying to myself is, I don't have all the information. I don't live in that person's body. I don't know why they made the decision they made. All I know is what I know for myself. And I think we try to write stories about how things and why they happen. And instead of sit down and hash it out and have open conversations and hear things we don't want to hear, it's safer to stay with a story that other people didn't show up for me and I was hurt instead of they didn't show up because they couldn't. They had kids to take care of. They were fucking exhausted. They were struggling to get through the day. They were underpaid and under-resourced. And I am too. And it's easier to fire back at my own community than it is to see the problem as structural. And to understand that, we say this with the people that we serve. The problem is not the person. The problem is the system. We're inside a system. Harm reduction, behavioral health services, everything funded by this country is a system. We work in like the lowest paid field possible. We're in like an administration that's actively dismantling everything. So, and then there also is this belief that like if we just start handling the harm and hold people accountable, no one will ever get harmed again. That's not true. People are going to keep getting harmed forever and ever and ever. People are going to keep doing harm forever and ever and ever, and nothing is perfect. So I think that's also like this frustration and fatigue of like, why can't we just be different? We're not actually celebrating and embracing and appreciating and sitting with the reality that community is very ugly, community is really messy. And for me, I'm willing to withstand a lot of harm and I'm willing to perpetrate a lot of harm. But my only wish for all of us is that we get out of this alive and hopefully making some money and hopefully with nobody dying. And
Can you can
everybody's
you
kids have what they need.
can you put this part, can you just cut and trim? I know this
Yeah,
is on
that
soothing.
needs
I
to
need
be
that whole part, all of
on
Zay's
cap
part.
cut.
How many of you guys agree with that? Like, I need y'all to drop like, all
Most
yes,
definitely do.
I
And
need
that
this. You need to like let this be and
And I'm the
we'll do.
one that spoke on it, and I feel
Listen,
Papao also. Love that.
yeah,
she snapped.
and I was gonna say, Zay, thank you for articulating that, because this is why, and it's really me, once again, from Shreeta, it's really me and Shreeta who I have this conversation on the most, well, on this call, you know, our people are really good asking for grace we're not willing to give. You understand? And, this is also why I hope people really picked up and how the questions are formatted, how this conversation was formatted, because a lot of times we only look at one side of things or we focus on one side of things, right? And we don't look at the bigger picture of the whys. It's the same thing when we talk about drug use and people focus on the drugs, but y'all ain't talking about the whys. And thank you for saying that. I wanted to, I always like to talk about the good and the bad, because it's not all good, it's not all bad. The reason's not all A and the reason's not all B, So thank you for saying that. And I feel like you know, it really segues into our next question, right? Because we spoke about, we laid the groundwork for everything, where y'all come from in the leadership, the pros and cons of the leadership, there's a lot of cons, let's be honest, there's a lot of, things that need to be worked on. But I don't like to just talk about things. I don't think any of us should have a mentality where we could just talk about it, lash out, and then that's it. That's the work. That's not the work. That's actually another reason why I stepped away from so many advocacy spaces, and I say that respectfully because I'm not with that just talking about things. So, with that being said, um, I'm wondering, what do y'all think? What does it look like for frontline workers and community members to organize within harm reduction spaces? And what I mean by that is, how do we move from individual frustration, right, to collective action and change? Are there any strategies you have seen work when communities push for accountability?
What I have seen semi work, because I always say if it was working, we wouldn't be sitting here having this whole conversation like this, because we would be like, hey, come talk to these folks. So it starts with spaces where there's truth and authenticity. And unfortunately, Jose, I'm gonna say it like this. There's not a lot of spaces like this. The only way we can get to moving forward, it I'm not about to repeat what Zay just said, is everything really kind of packaged in what she talked about, and how we show up authentically and be able to have these kind of conversations to get to that point. I've told organizers here in Louisville, right? You all see everything. You see what happened with the officers for the Breonna Taylor case. Y'all see what's going on in this city, right? And I said, the problem is everyone in this organizing space in the South, in Kentucky specifically, want to do it one way. And I said, until we get to a point to say that we are all in this together, that doesn't mean we move the same. That we come with our strengths, we come as who we are, and we leverage strategically. We leverage how we show up in spaces. I'm in a doctoral program for forensic psychology. And I tell people, you going back, you about to be 50 years old. Yep, I am. This is strategy, baby. Money's moving this way. So if I'm going to do something in this system, then I move strategically. And I said, until we can get to a point where we could sit down and say, you know what, I can work with you and I can go on lane A while you're doing lane B, you got lane C. We all come together because we're on the same route. We're going the same route, but we're going to, if you take lane A, it may take you 3 hours longer because that's the route you got to go, but that's okay. I trust the process. Until we could get to that point, we're not. But I think it starts like this. You know what's the dopest thing I'm seeing right now, Jose? I hardly know anybody on here. To me, that's how movement works. But you got to go back to what Zay said. Movement ain't going to happen inside these systems of these organizations. It's going to take us, the revolutionaries that are in there. We're in there working. We need to come out and do this. We need to huddle. We need to record those moments. We need to teach each other. We need to get each other in these spaces and say, okay, yeah, you may have been, you was fucking up before, and that's okay. I love you. You're here. You're here today, which lets me know. And the people, and it's not to say the people that had to drop off, but the fact that you got folks here just off of the call to action that you put on that's the start of movement. Like, that's the dopest thing. As I was watching people get on here, I'm like, whoa, this is something right here. I don't see this happen. I don't see this happen. We're across state lines, dude. So we're doing it because what you're doing right now has not been done. It's not being done. We got a whole organization that's supposed to be doing this. They built a mission to start doing that this year, and they can't do it. They can't do it. So we got to stop talking, change the language. Stop saying what we need to do and say what we're going to do next.
We're going to
now
do
that this
right now.
started. This just started. Then what's next, Jose? Because I was about to flip that back to you and say, what's next? Because you got people's attention. You got people saying, wait a minute, this different. They're not just talking. They're being authentic. They're being transparent. They're being vulnerable. They're speaking truth. I'm leaning in. That means that's going to double because these folks going to talk about it. So I'm putting it back in your face. Dude,
I second that.
Yeah.
What are you going to do, sir?
What are
you over here asking all the questions?
Wow.
What are you gonna do? Where do you put the change?
Because you asked us to be a part of this.
Right now, I'm activated because I want.
Right.
That wasn't even
a
question.
So what are you
Jesus,
doing, Jose?
No,
with
listen,
the fire in your background.
When's the next
so look,
one, right?
yeah. But here's the thing, though. Look, I need y'all to see. There's a lot of hidden meanings in the logo and all this. Listen, look at this. It's the pawn leading the king and the queen and the bishop. The pawn is supposedly what they call the weakest pawn piece on the chessboard, but it's the most powerful piece because it could be any person on that board minus the king.
So
you understand? No, chess. I know chess, but that's the whole point of this picture, right? It's like, and this is the whole point of all of this, right? Yeah. I feel personally when you put people together, and talk about difficult conversations. Through it comes actionable items. These is people that's hurt. If they resonating with you, they've been hurt. And this is something that I feel, and it goes to that question, what does lived and living experience have to do with leadership? It's exactly this, because now we know what to avoid, what not to
I
recreate.
see.
I hope that there's people in here that is going to bunch together and start creating, because there's people in the same state, start creating programs that don't replicate none of these programs or none of them. And if y'all know my work, because I'm doing everything I could not to, like, put the name of the organization I work in, but if you know, like, my work, what I've created, what I've done, it's been exactly that, to do all of the things that these people are talking about. That's it. I'm bringing all of our people together. I'm giving people space to let talk about it. And you know what? I got a whole bunch of skills. You got a whole bunch of skills, and we could start saying that same thing for every person here.
Hmm.
We could uplift
Mhm.
ourselves right now. And mind you, we don't even need to be in the same place, because I've
Listen, a
been
girl
there.
went online and saw some feet pics, and
Motherfucker.
okay, we all got the power to lift ourselves out. Is
Look, I'm
right.
trying to tell you, man. Like, I'm trying to tell you. And once we could right now, we don't even got to be in the same place, and we could create something major and strong. But that's the whole point of it. If you don't put that in people's head, if you don't put people around people with the same like minds, you know what we're gonna keep having? Siloed conversations and actions, all the shit that got us here. So, like, honestly, this is literally my way of, like, hey, this is the most I could do right now, because, like you said, Zay, some one of the people livelihoods is at stake once you go too far in all of that. You understand? So how do we do it? Very strategically, like this. So
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It's like we do it by honestly, like we have to know each other. But then also, like, here's the thing is like we have to know each other and know who we are and what's important and what we need. We don't all have to be best friends. That's a big problem with movement because then people get like really fucking like you fall out
Very
with your friend.
clicky.
Right. And well,
Very
then you fall out with your
clicky.
friend and then you don't want to show up at the stuff. And then it's like, you know what, we need to also like have what our ancestors had, which is discipline and trained attention towards the goal. And this is how I operate even at my organization. Honestly, as an executive director, I'm like, my vision is about non-carceral, non-police based responses to crisis. That's like my favorite thing in the whole world. So anybody who's on board with that, I fucking love you. Here's how I feel about this, though, and this might sound cold. Movements are not made of personalities or celebrities. So I tell people, if people leave, that's okay with me. The movement, the people may change in the movement, but the work stays the same and the orientation stays the same. So when I'm training supervisors, program managers, and they're heartbroken that they're losing staff, I'm like, your love for the work has to supersede your attachment to the people in it, because just like love in any other context, the form and the face might change, but the shape is always the same and the texture is the same. So I think like in the movement, when we're talking about organizing, it's like that just needs to be laid out as like we're here for a purpose. We're united based on that purpose, which means that us pursuing the goal is not contingent on where the fucking relationship stands. That's called nepotism. That's not movement. That's called mean girling. And I think like moving from individual frustration to collective action is like allowing for there to be things like power and imbalances even within movement, because certain people bring different strengths and different skills. You might need to bring somebody in that has some expertise that's very fucking credentialed to map out, here's all the systems, here's the institutions, here's the federal mandates, here's the names of people who have positions and power that are influencing all the shit you're doing. But if we're not willing to contend with the fact that we all have different gifts, skills, abilities, capacities, educational backgrounds, perspectives, and feelings, then we lock ourselves in an echo chamber. We shortcut. We have no ability to get expertise outside of our own like immediate circles. And then there isn't accountability because there's no challenge. We're not growing. We're not learning anything together. So I think it's like, yeah, clarifying the relationships, talking about the goals and shared risks, and then people also developing enough patience to slow down and do the internal work so that they're not bringing bringing in all the internal work into the movement organizing spaces. Because here's my thing about even peer support: relationship before task, relationship never at the expense of the fucking task. And how many organizing meetings and projects and workspaces am I in and frequenting where the task itself, like why we are gathering here, why we're getting paid, the purpose we're here, is derailed because people have unprocessed work. And that's what accountability is for me. It's accountability for our internal shit so that we can like be responsible for how we show up and how we impact other people. And I think we need to train people also that are around us to think and feel that way and understand, because that's interdependence.
Exactly.
100%. And like I think like that's also a barrier for a lot of our community members too. Like so
Because we
many of
build
our
those
people have
relationships first.
they have so many beautiful ideas, our people. I'm telling you, man, like so many bright minds in our community, but sometimes it's limited expertise, which I think all of us are jack of all trades. I mean, yeah, not jack of all. I think all of us in some way are masters of one, and don't focus on a lot of things. If I'm being honest, um, but you don't have to know everything. And this is a shameless plug to Ryan Shreeta, like to set up for this episode or really this whole shit. Ryan sat down for 2 hours with me on a computer, walking me through the whole website on how to
I love
like, live
Ryan.
stream everything, like the intro video. Like, I already knew how to make videos, though. I'm like, I'm pretty decent with it, but I was running it by him. I ran my logo by my other people's Van Asher. Like the original logo was
Yeah.
the Puerto Rican guy in front of the mic. He said, if you wanted to be inclusive, think of something different. That's where this logo came from, right? So we cannot be expected, or we can't put that expectation on ourselves that we need to know everything. And once again, that puts us and upholds the whole siloing that we're witnessing now. Is that we think that we got to do it ourselves. Our way is the end all be all. Nah, bring the people in it. You know how beautiful things will come out? A gold standard, diamond standard you'll have if you put your community in it? Man, stop it, man. Let's get it.
Yeah, y'all. I think as you was speaking, Zay, and thinking about what Jose was asking us, Jose created this space, right? Continue and let's strategize. Like Bree, no, I'm always on the strategy thing. It's strategy. This space is intentional. There's a word that they use, convener. And, spiritually speaking, pulling people together, being able to plant seeds and bring life to something and have people show up in this way. There's something to that. And what I do for myself when I am building, when I'm in the process of birthing, because that's why I say I'm birthing something, I'm giving birth, right? Is I really sit back and reflect. So that question, it takes time. I'm going to be reflecting all weekend. There's energy here and there's some intention that needs to happen, but it absolutely needs strategy and intention. Just like you set this up, and the intention you put, there is a next step. And it's going to take that. It's going to take the people that show up in the space. I absolutely, what Zay said resonates with me a lot when we're talking about people's lanes and what people bring into these spaces. When people walk away, I remember the first time I had to really explain to people that I don't really have a turnover. When they notice people have left, it was their time to move on. They brought what they needed and their value was in there, and then they moved to something else, and that's okay. I really feel an energy in this, and I want us to hold that. I want to hold that. I want to hold it, and I want to reflect, and I want to follow up with you in a week, Jose, and share some thoughts. I'm like
Yeah,
in a real deep reflection. This has been very enlightening for me.
yeah.
And I just wanted to share my feedback.
I think we covered the next question, which was what are some things we could do to like mobilize, right? So, I want to be mindful of people time. And one of my people asked me, "Is it really gonna be tonight?" And I was like, "No," and we're really 20 minutes away, and I'm really sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm gonna be honest, but it's because it was such a beautiful conversation. Um, but um,
Yeah,
and
because
my
I was
cat.
scared at first. So, but we're good. We're
Yeah,
almost at
my,
9.
my cats are looking at me right now and doing like what they do, and they like, you bugging out right now. We're supposed to be fed. But um, what are if I closing thoughts basically? What if and don't say their name, but if there was a specific person you was talking to in leadership, what would be some takeaways you hope that they would get from this meeting that we had? Or convening, like Zay put it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go since everyone's jumping up in arms. Um, I because I'm not in a good space, I can't really answer that. Everything would be coming out of the flesh, and I know that.
I
So,
take it. I'll take that.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure they picked up on you what you was throwing out regardless, so don't worry.
I don't know what I was throwing out, but yeah, I can't. I'm very in tune with myself in that regard where I know where I'm not operating right, where I'm not good, and I can tell you that I'm not good. So I can't say anything.
Understand.
Nothing that I say will be fruitful, will be edifying, nothing. So
No, I
yeah.
understand. Understand.
And I'm gonna speak because I would love for Zay. She's motivated me in some thoughts places, and so I want to hear. I would love for you to close out that question with your thoughts, but I'm gonna share this. Um, I hope for there's people in my life and that are in leadership roles, and people who are wanting to show up in that way. And when I speak, because again, I think that everyone's a leader in their own right because you're leading something, whoever that is, whatever spaces you're in, even if it's not the professional space. But I do want to be intentional that I hope something stirred up inside of you and disrupted you. When people would come into my group, when I would do group therapy on their first day, I always said I don't expect people to talk. And it was funny because by the end of it, everyone was talking, right? They always start talking about stuff and really talking about themselves. I said, I don't expect you to talk. I want you to sit with your discomfort. I don't want you to take any action. I just want you to hold it. Learn how to hold it. The biggest changes in my life came from me learning how to sit with how it feels, the heaviness that we've talked about, the weight, and explore it. Don't make moves right now because they'll just be reactionary and they would be performative unless, that is the clinician side, you were intending to harm yourself or others, then yeah, I need you not to do that right now. But outside of that, I need I need you to sit with it because that's the first step. Like that's the first place where change can really start coming or transformation. If you felt any kind of discomfort, if you felt uncomfortable with something, even if it was, man, I've been silent and I really want to speak up. I want to learn how to speak up. Sit with that because there's more to come from spaces like this that Jose's going to move into. So sit with it, stay with it. And I want to encourage that. That's it for me.
I was listening so deeply that I forgot the question. I
Oh,
was
just
locked into what
if
you were
there was
saying.
any takeaways, if there's someone, and I'm not saying there is, even if there's the imaginary, like, you got to put Frieza in your mind and be like, I'm Goku and shit. But anyways, um, anime people get that reference. But anyways, if there was that leader, who, what takeaways do you wish that they would get from this conversation we had?
I think it's probably gonna sound corny, but like there is no right way to do any of this. If there was a right way, we would have figured it out by now. And I think, oh, it's gonna sound so corny.
Not cornier than
Like,
Jose.
Corny. Wow. I
yeah,
was about to be like corny ass, and here we go throwing you driving by today. Wow. Okay. Okay, I'll
I
take
mean,
it.
I think what I want anyone that I talk to who talks about like leadership or even just like power at all wants to know is like you get to choose your own teachers. And your teacher doesn't have to be a historical figure or a family member. It could be yourself. It could be an element. It could be an animal. It could be a nature, like something in nature. Like you get to choose the things that you draw like inspiration from and influence from and how you want to understand power and work with it. Um, and then I think it's so important to know like where we come from because a lot of my leadership, quote unquote, like personal, like my personal knowing of myself came when I started looking into like my nationality, my ancestry, when I started listening to all the teachings that my dad was telling me all throughout adolescence and high school and college, and I never listened to him. I started developing a relationship with my elders, spending time with people who were significantly older than me. Um, and also like don't be afraid to listen to people that you disagree because like maybe you might agree with them later. Or yeah, just like stay flexible, like stay teachable. And I think like I think like Ashley, who's here, that I work with is like, you're never going to be like, like the black belt or whatever, like in peer support is like, our self-work is never done. So like discovering who we are is never done. And like power shifts and changes over time. So how we understand power in ourselves personally and how it impacts other people, that's continuously a work in progress. And as long as we're taking feedback from other people around us and we have like strong teachers that have strong experience. And Bree, like I just want to say I'm so glad you're here because my greatest teachers are people that have been the most hurt by the movement. I literally have someone that calls herself, she's like, I'm just the grumpy elder and I don't know why you want to talk to me and stuff. And like, I want all her war stories and I talk to her almost every single day. And yeah, it's like one of the most important relationships ever. So yeah, like when I say like you get to decide who your teacher is, like you can also just take bits and pieces from people as you learn, and you can write your own teachings, but you can always be teaching yourself. So even people that don't think they're in the greatest place always have something to teach others, and we always have something to learn from other people. It's just a matter of like if we're actually listening fully and if we're paying attention enough.
Say that again, because I think some people need to hear that. You don't
The
think
whole
that
thing.
you are. That part, that
I forgot what
Jose.
I just
I
said.
know Jose gonna have
Oh,
it
that
all
came from
clipped.
the heart
It's
then.
been
We
coming
love
from the
that.
The
heart all
truth.
night.
Any panel, keynote, anything, I just like black out and I'm like, I don't, and just so you know, I refuse to watch a recording. I've never
I
watched a
know.
single recording of
Oh, I'm the
myself.
same way. I don't read any articles.
So
I
if
don't
you
watch
put out
me on
clips,
anything.
if you
I
whatever,
block it.
I will not see them.
Me too.
I'm gonna
Me
send this.
too.
I'm gonna send
I
this
start
video
crying
to
and I don't
y'all.
know why.
I'm gonna send
I
this
Yeah.
just
video to y'all and nag y'all every day. Like,
I
yo,
just
It's
y'all
fine
want
saw
because
y'all
I
saw
could
the
block you.
entire
You know
thing,
that,
right?
right?
I'm
Huh?
I
about
could
to
block
have these
you.
nuggets
All right.
because these need to be shared. People need to hear this. People don't get to hear these kind of,
True.
which is why Jose
But
wanted
people
this.
don't want to hear it because
Right, but they
it
don't
makes you
even
feel
know though.
uncomfortable.
Think
Because
about
I
it.
must say that the first time you started speaking, I felt the bow, not in a bad way.
So
But like I felt it.
I was gonna say
It
that. I was gonna
hits you.
say, you know what everyone misses from podcasts that I'm on is the beginnings And what I want to share with you all is the tension. I named that. That's why I said tension. I know what tension is. And that's what I felt. Zay came in and the energy, and I'm sharing this with you all because I keep saying sit
No.
with discomfort because what it does is it teaches you something. It teaches you something about yourself. What Zay brought, she didn't bring anything. Everything she's bringing here is the same thing she brought in the beginning. But when you show up and you are caught in yourself and your own feelings, your own emotions, your own experiences, especially when we have a space that we name, this is where harm reduction, we're going to talk. Then listen to the title. Here we talk about it. And we came in with energy from a harm that was hurting right here. It's sitting on our neck.
Yeah.
What they brought in was what Zay's bringing in now. And it's the tension that you were feeling, Bree. That tension is a learning lesson. What I did, as soon as I felt it, I went, embrace what's happening right here. Oh my God, I'm hurt and I'm not allowing myself to feel it. I'm fighting my grief. Everything she named, I'm fighting
Yep.
grief. I'm
And
fighting
it's
the fact that
uncomfortable to hear it.
it's
And also,
uncomfortable.
you know what's weird? I mean, it's not weird, right? But it's like because we're on screen, so like I also feel not only do I feel like you was talking to me, but like you was looking at me.
Because you're looking at the screen.
You're looking at the camera.
So when
So
I
I'm
tell,
like, I had to be like, wait.
when I tell
Good
people,
shit.
this is why I say I don't be telling people, and I think people in my life think I be lying. When I tell y'all shit, like I'm telling you shit that I actually do. Sit with it because the next time you show up, now you all seeing us work together, you would think, damn, they so tight and they could, and I'm like, but you don't understand. The first step is we got to sit with the discomfort and examine ourselves.
To be honest.
I did that with Jose. He may not realize that. Jose said some very about, I'm direct, but I say it so I say it like this. And I'm like, no, no, no.
No,
It hurt. It did something I had to do like this. I had to go.
Yo, that's wild. Just the drive by that's just been coming today. Wow.
But that's
you shouldn't
but
have had me here till 9 o'clock because you about to have a good time with me after 8.
But just wanted to share that piece. And I'm glad you brought it up, Bree, because I always like people to know the process. I think people see us and then they're like, wow, I want to be. And I'm like, no, you're going to have to do the hard work first. You got to do the self work. You're going to have to reflect. You're going to have to examine yourself. You're going to have to say that felt uncomfortable. So now I need to process. And I think that's where we miss the mark sometimes is that we don't show people because we're afraid to. But I wanted to bring up, and I was like, how do we bring that up? And you did it by acknowledging, but I'm like, that's the process and people need to see that.
Right.
Yeah,
And also
man.
I think it's important to keep people in your circle and other leaders that make you uncomfortable in that way. Because if you think that I never get a text message from Shreeta saying, listen, I ain't talked to you in a couple of days because I had to sit with this when you did that.
Yeah.
Funny. That's funny. Does she reply? Because I'm still waiting for
No, that's what
replies.
she sends me. And I'm
Weeks
like,
later.
huh?
Oh, all right. Oh, she
What?
said it. All right. No shade.
But
No shade. That
but
goes
it's
without saying. No shade.
but you know what? That we can't ask for accountability if we're not willing to hold ourselves accountable. I can't ask that of another person or ask folks to hold other people and like have conversations if I'm not okay with Shrita texting me like, yo, I don't what that's unethical. That's this. Like you gotta be able, you gotta provide. It's like when you're dating, right? I can't ask anything from a man that I'm not willing to do myself. You can't ask anything from any relationship, friendship, work, what you can't, except for work, ask for everything. But like, we can't ask for the change and not want that stuff to also be applied to us. So we got to be okay with sitting in here and watching her talk to you and then also stare at you, but she doesn't know what's going on. But like that, you have to be able to go through it and grow through it because it's not just going through. You grow through these crappy situation. So y'all check
And
back in with me in
and
about a month or
sometimes,
two and I'll get over it.
and you know what? Sometimes it's not gonna be pretty on your end. Like you understand, like, and I mean that in a, just with my personal life and just my experience, I'm not happy about everything I did. I don't regret nothing, but I know it's a kind of an oxymoron or even a paradox, but I don't regret nothing. But there's some things that I did in my past and in the recent past too that I'm not happy about, and sometimes it don't look good. Sometimes you warring with yourself, beating yourself up, and you're
Yeah.
your best advocate. It doesn't feel good when you can't be your best advocate. That means you holding
Right.
yourself accountable. The best lessons I've gotten was from people who have called me out. I've had recently called people like, yo, look, I've been thinking about you, how everything went. Let's set up a Zoom, let's talk, where, I have to be honest with, like, yo, my fault, the way I played this and this, and, this is how I've grown from that, or this is what I do now to keep that in my mind. And, I don't think people understand that, it's something off your shoulders. You understand what I mean? So, um, yeah, man, I'm gonna leave it at that. Um, thank you everybody for joining. Well, go ahead, Bree. You want to say something?
Yeah, anyway, thank you for having this space. Because
Yes. Thank you.
I didn't realize how much I personally needed this. So thank you guys for being a part of this conversation.
Thank
Um, yeah, and I want to remind everybody that we will have sessions with different topics every first Friday of the month. Next month, May, topic will be called Family Matters, where we discuss the place that people who lost family members who are actively in harm reduction spaces, the roles they play. We're gonna talk the pros and cons. I don't have a full lineup yet, but we will have Susan Osterman, I'm sorry, and Jordan Scott. I know them for sure. There's other people I have, but we're gonna have a very, the way this was a direct and, kind of a lot to swallow convo is gonna be the same.